And now you wait.
Okay. All right. So, just make sure. All right, we're good to go. People will join us later, but we're going to get the conversation started because we are recording. Catmix here on Offbeat's network. And we've got Charons here. We're going to do our set review. Let me start off with my apologies for our previous set where I did not commit and get the Kaldheim review out, and I apologize for that.
That's fine. Nothing was playable in Kaldheim anyway.
That's right. Nothing good came out of that.
No.
Just nice shiny Pringles. Yeah, but we're here now. We're actually doing this one a little bit early. There's still a couple cards we haven't seen yet, but we've seen essentially all the mythics and pretty much all the rares, probably all of the uncommons. And if there's anything impactful that we're going to miss, it'll be really easy to go back and catch up on it. But there's so much stuff happening now, and there's so little time before the set comes out, and it's already the weekend, that we were like, we have to do this. So we're going to go ahead and fire through the cards that we've seen, and we're going to limit the scope of the conversation to modern application, and then card design, just so that we can kind of hit on all this stuff and try and get this thing done in an hour, maybe. There's how much stuff there is to talk about in this set that I'm not sure that we actually can get a barometer of how much time it's going to take to get through this dialogue. So, with that, no further ado, let's start off. Charons, Offbeat, how are you guys feeling? You guys feeling good?
Doing pretty good over here. A lot of spoilers. Sort of this spoiler season flood, right? Like the spoilers just start coming, and then you're not really sure what to do. Like they all come in like a week or two. I don't know. The older I get, the weirder spoiler season becomes, where like I keep less and less track of it.
Yeah, I think by the time we even wrap our head around what some of this stuff could do, we'll already be at Modern Horizons 2.
Yeah.
So like I'm dizzy. I'm literally dizzy at trying to keep up. I finally got myself convinced on 24 and 25 lands. You guys jumped up to 80 cards, and then everything got banned, and now we're just like starting this format over from square one again. So I'm perplexed. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, this new set looks super wild. Like I'm used to seeing a new set and seeing like one or two maybe taxes playable cards. You know, with the exception of the like return to like Zendikar, where we got 3 all-stars. But this one, like I feel like every card I'm like, is this playable? Am I splashing a color for this?
True. You also play Elspeth Sun's Champion main deck in DD2. So.
It was in the sideboard. Okay, I never played her main deck. It was some sideboard tech. Was it good? Probably not.
You were definitely using Search for Glory to go get 6-mana Elspeth.
That's a combo right there.
Yeah. All right, so let's get started. Looking at the dragons here. Do any of these dragons hit you guys where you're like, hey, let's stop and pause and talk about them? For modern, the scope of modern.
No, I think the only one that jumped at me as a maybe, like this is a big maybe, is the blue-red one. Simply because it falls into the category of spells that are cheaper once they resolve. Right, because it's a dragon. It comes in, makes a treasure token. So immediately it costs like a pseudo 3 mana.
Yeah. I didn't give that one much attention. With it being legendary, I feel like it's not something that like a blue-red prowess or anything cares about. It just seems a little awkward to try and jam a bunch of them into your deck.
Yeah.
I did think, however, the black-white one has a weird enough text box where I think it could see itself played on the top end of a curve of some weird strategy. I think that the modes on it are like kind of applicable to modern, like making 2/1 bodies, drawing cards. The Anthem effect seem like it seems close. I don't know. That's the one I'm keeping my eye out on. I think that one could be playable. It's very mid-range grindy-esque type card.
Right.
Seems really hard to get off the board. I don't know. That's one I got my feelers out for.
I think that the blue red and the white black ones are the ones to watch out for. The blue red one's interesting because it's the same thing that Urza already does. The Urza decks, like all of your artifacts now have the ability to add mana, just like the same thing that Urza enables. And so the question is like, what's your payoff? What are you going to do with all that mana? Like the minute it hits the board, it does impact the board if you got a whole bunch of trinkets. And then the other thing to pay attention to, I guess, is the white black one. I don't know if at 5 mana that's expensive, but I agree with you that the modes are reasonable for modern. But it's hard to know what deck wants to pay 5 mana to get there.
Yeah. As we keep talking, there's enough happening in black white where I think black white might have got pushed and turned into playable in modern. But let's scroll down. All right. Anything on the second row strike out to you guys?
The Ghost Forge is interesting. I mean, Ghost Forge is like, I mean, it's too high on the curve for like spirits or anything. It's got kind of a luminous broodmoth thing going on, where whenever a creature dies, you bring it back in some capacity. Blot Out the Sky is you had pointed out there's potentially like an upgraded Lingering Souls kind of sort of. It's weirdly pushed. It's not like the question is like, what do you want to cost? Like, what do you want to cast that for? Do you want to cast it for 3, 4, 5? And then Harness Infinity is like, it's hard to tell if that's like one with nothing or if that's going to break somewhere, and I just don't know where. But the thing that the second row really highlights is like how weird some of these designs are. Wizards. This row is kind of a flavor win. The row sort of showcases like what they're going for in the like Harry Potterification set, and it is kind of a flavor win. I mean, these spells are pushed. These spells do weird things. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to be used, but it's totally possible that I can find we're going to find ourselves losing to these things off the top.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Blot Out the Sky. I think that is an incredibly powerful effect, and I know some people looked at me for my hyperbole in the Discord, but like, there's really no bad casting cost for this card. Like, I mean, you're not going to do it for 3, but like, I mean, like total being 3. Like, but casting that thing at 4 mana is 4 powers on board with flyers. 5 or 6, which are both still reasonable for most decks that cast it at, is insane amount of power to put in the air. Anything above that is just kind of like you're now board wiping territory. Like, I think that's an incredible card. I think it's something that, like, when you first look at it, it's real easy to dismiss because it's like one of those scaled spells. But I think even at its smallest form of like where you would cast it at on curve, it's just like incredibly powerful.
Yeah, definitely feels like one of those cards that like if you're playing it in a black white X kind of grindy deck, this off the top wins the game.
Yeah. It's like black white bonfire.
Yeah.
That's what I see when you look at it. Right? Like if you hit this super late in the game and you just have 7, 8 mana, whatever it is, and you're just like, yeah, blow out the board, clear the path, my creatures fly. I know they come into play tapped and that is relevant, but like I don't think it's that relevant.
I do think that it's going to find a home in an attrition deck somewhere, and if it's in an attrition deck, then you're going to win the game. 2/1 flyers is a clock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so this next row, we finally start dipping into rares. I think that the black-white cleric is like worth the conversation. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it personally. If you guys have space for it, go ahead. I'll just say that I think it's a mediocre version of meddling mage that doesn't actually trigger restrict the spell from being cast. So it's like, to me, it just doesn't have enough upside. It's cool, like the design. I like that it's got a little extra power, but it's not enough for me. You guys have any takes on the black-white cleric?
I agree with you. I mean, again, it's like a weird version of Meddling Mage where it's got 1 more point of power. It doesn't actually stop the spell from coming down, but of course you get to draw a card and you deal damage to your opponent. I mean, I don't know if white-black decks actually want this, but you definitely can see it fitting in a deck with Thoughtseize or Inquisition of Kozilek or something like that. I mean, you're going to know what your opponent has in their hand. That's different from Meddling Mage. Meddling Mage, you either got to guess or play Peek or something. I don't know, but Here, your opponent's going to have knowledge on turn 1 or turn 2 through Tide Hollow Sculler or something, and so this is going to be effective. It's going to hit something. But other than that, you're right. It's sort of a different spin on Meddling Mage.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. It's fine. The biggest thing I have with it is that like you're only ever probably going to draw one card off it ever. Because if even then, because like I mean, sure you're up against prowess. You're like I'm going to name Lightning Bolt because they're probably going to have Bolt. Like they'll bolt you once if you're lucky, and they didn't bolt this already. They'll bolt you a second time, and you'll draw 2 cards off it. But
I actually think you're naming Lava Dart with this against prowess.
Fair. Lava Dart would get like 2 cards off it, but I mean the point I'm trying to make is that like you name a card, it doesn't stop it from being cast, and they're only going to have 4 copies max. So yeah, so unless they have some sort of graveyard flashback for it, you're only ever going to draw 1 card. So it's maybe a 1-for-1, maybe replace itself, but it seems like if you want this kind of effect, you're either you're gonna want to play Meddling Mage, or if you're hard stuck in black white, you just play Cabal for 1 more mana.
Yeah. One of the cards I do. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say before we leave the row, I was gonna note that Radiant Scroll Wielder is a redundant effect for Soulfire Grandmaster. Again, I don't know if that matters or it's gonna matter, but I'm always paying attention to like, not quite functional reprints or functional reprints to know where some of the decks in the format may move. But like Soulfire Grandmaster was decent in standard or wherever it was decent at the time, and Scroll Wielder is now a redundant effect. And then Culmination of Studies is kind of weird. I don't think that Storm wants this, but I'm sort of intrigued by the design. The idea is like if you just ramp a bunch and you cast a Manamorphose or something, you can literally just exile the top 6 cards of your library, and for each land you do this thing, and for each blue you draw, and for each red you deal damage. I don't really think Storm wants this, but it's got an effect that's reminiscent of some of the green spells we've seen, like the Genesis Wave type stuff. Again, the question is like, does it have a home? I don't know, but it's certainly an interesting effect.
The card I actually was going to take a second to kind of come back to was Blex.
Okay.
I think that the body itself is kind of hilarious as a 3/2, but that backside being like a Sylvan library that all happens at once in 1 turn for you is incredible. I think if you're in like a green-black shell, I think you maybe want this card for the spell side on the back, but being able to just shove a body on the front side of it that's really good against burn style strategies just seems like this card is incredibly flexible. And the reason I really want to stop on this was kind of the stuff we've already been talking about, but this set does some really strange pushed things. And I was actually looking at okay, this set has 275 cards, but in reality it has 300 some odd cards because of all the double-faced cards. And for the first time it really feels like the double-faced cards are independently good on each side and are in different colors, therefore making this set feel like there's way more cards available to you. Yeah. So just a thing I want to stop and recognize and point out, which was just we're getting so much value in that small set size that Wizards kind of pushed back down to, and we're getting more out of it now. So it's incredible.
Well, as long as we're on that topic, I'll bring up the design question, which is, fast forward 5 years or whatever it is. Are you forced to play a lot of these modal double-faced spells just because they give you more options and they're more versatile? I mean, if Wizards stays in this design space, we're going to end up in a place where it becomes preferable just to have access to more options, if that makes sense, because they're all more versatile. I mean, do you think that this is a good for the game kind of design change? Does it matter? Does it not matter?
Yes. I mean, I play more games of Magic since double-faced cards. Being on D&T, having Glass Pool Mimics in my deck, and there's just different areas like pathway lands that have allowed my deck to function more with more stability now that doesn't really cost anything. Again, what the power level of these double-faced cards looks like in the end will matter, but just having the flexibility is better for the game. It just makes more games playable. We all know it's really frustrating to rip off something like Aether Vial off the top of your library. Imagine Wizards designing into a space where it's hey, a card like this is really good on turn 1, but ooh, that just doesn't feel good, or it's bad for coverage when it happens on turn 10. Like, maybe this is where we stick the back half of, this other concept on this card. Like, I don't hate that. I think that's really cool if more stuff like that happens.
Yeah, this does feel like the solution to the classic problem with most mid range to control decks is that you draw the wrong half of your deck, right? You have your curve and it looks like a bell curve, right? You have a fair amount of cheap 1 to 2 mana spells, and you got some 3s, and you got some 4s, you got some 5s. But sometimes, start of the game, you draw a bunch of 5 mana cards, feels bad, becomes a non game, feels like shit. But with Blex, right? It's both a 3-drop and a 4-drop. So it feels good on both those turns, and you don't have to worry about drawing the one half, right? If these were if Blex was 2 different cards, it might be terrible. But the fact that they put it on the same card just makes a lot of games feel better because you're not drawing cards that you're not going to play.
So
Yeah.
I agree with both of you. I think that this is probably a healthy change for the game as a whole, just because, again, you have fewer non-games. But I will point out that it is a dimension of power creep. It is a kind of power creep. And so, is it good? Is it bad? Well, as the game progresses, more and more of the game is going to take place using these modal double-faced spells. And the question is, is it good? Is it bad? It's certainly going to be clunky to go back to paper magic doing this.
I don't think so. I mean, most of the game is muscle memory anyway. How many times has someone shown you, a Chinese player rewards cryptic command, and you're just yeah, sure, I know what it is.
It depends. It depends on how well versed everyone is at your FNM. I just think there's going to be a lot of sleeve switching, and you got to pull the thing out, flip it over, or you got to own I don't know, 5 copies or 6, whatever it is that Wizards wants you to buy. But I do think that this is a lot easier to implement at MTGO than it is to do it.
This is not I mean, you're right. I've definitely in the past, with Delver and Standard, I used to just have a 5th copy of Delver, but it doesn't pop up that often where people don't know what's going on. Especially if you're at public play where it costs money to enter this stuff, most people know what's going on. But also too, I think Wizards does have the tools. They have an app called Companion now. And I think it has all the resources you need for tournament play. So I'm pretty sure you can just pull the card up on the app and show it during gameplay.
Right.
So I don't know. I think in 2021 it's going to be hard to say I don't have the resources to understand my opponent's flip card. I think that there's too many things that are provided right now for that to be. Yeah, 1998 version of me doesn't want to sit across from this and Huntmaster in my FNM, right? But we're in eternal formats where this stuff is happening. I think it's okay. Because it's not going to be that hard in standard play. You're only going to have a handful of them to memorize in standard. For us in eternal formats, what's the difference of learning Blex and then learning how to get through your Tez opponent's combo turn and figure out if you have a way to not die or
right.
Not dying to Marit Lage. I think it's the same level of complexity that we actually kind of want.
Potentially. No, I can definitely see that. I'm just curious. I'll be curious to see how this sort of manifests in practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the second row, this next row, I think we can skip. I think there's cool stuff there, but I don't think.
I want to just rewind actually slightly here. I just want to touch on Kasmina quickly. I'm not sure if this card will be a problem, but it's a design that worries me because it's specifically the passive. Each other planeswalker you control has the lowest abilities of Kasmina. And it's these designs on cards that kind of have a backwards waterfall effect on older cards that tend to break shit. I mean, we just saw in the past 2 sets how double-faced cards were broken by old Magic cards that they just didn't test for, right? We saw Cascading into Tibble. We saw the birth of the true form of Oops, all spells. And this, giving all these old planeswalkers now a free +2 or a free make a token, it spooks me. I'm not sure if we'll see this in Modern, but if it does, it's going to be busted.
I agree.
Offbeat, you can't be serious. You think a 3 mana Simic card has a potential of being broken or a detriment to legacy or eternal format.
I know, it's unheard of. A one green-blue card. Who would have saw it coming?
Yeah, I mean, and it's legendary, so it's not even like you can have two on the board at the same time.
Right.
This is not a problem that we've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with your apprehension about the design space. I think that what's eventually something is going to make Super Friends a deck, and when it becomes a deck, I don't want to play against it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just like off the top of my like head, giving like Narset a way to recharge, giving Teferi maybe instead of a bounce, having Teferi make a 3/3, pretty good.
Isn't there a Teferi that can use 2 of these abilities every turn?
Yes.
Yeah, Teferi Time Raveler.
Yeah,
So-
I can't wait for
No,
that.
no, it's not Time Raveler. Is it? Is it Time Raveler?
No,
No,
that's
Time
the
Raveler
3
is a
mana
3-mana
one.
one.
I think it's Time Bender.
Time Master. It's time something. We know what it is. It's the 4 mana, 2 mana, 2 blue Teferi. But yeah. So then we have
we got a
like
Master of Time. Someone chimed in.
right
Master of Time. All right.
Master of Time. So yeah. So
Can't wait to see that. Use Kazmina's abilities twice per turn. That'll be great.
right. Like I mean, let's just look at the. I'm gonna check the starting level because that's the
No,
important bit.
we're gonna put this convo on pause and we can come back to it in the
All right.
Discord.
Yeah.
You're heard. You're validated. 3 mana Simic legendary cards are scary. I didn't skip over it for any other reason other than it's boring.
I've been
Like,
burnt too many times, and I can't
the
do it
conversation
again.
The conversation's valid. It's just like this design space is boring. I'm tired of seeing this design space.
That's fair.
Um,
Yeah, we can move on to this next row of like hybrid color cycle cards.
are we going through those? I was going to
Are
skip
they?
over those.
Is there anything notable here?
I didn't know.
Not
skip
really.
it.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
we're skipping it.
All right. Anything in this next row for you guys?
We got shitty Selfless Spirit. But it
Yeah,
is
Exiles.
double faced Selfless Spirit though. We got a 8 mana board wipe on the back.
There is a card on here I would like us to take 10 seconds on. I don't want to spend infinite time because I knew this would happen. We have so much to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think Flame Scroll Celebrant is worth talking about. What do you guys think?
Let's.
I mean, I can see why you want to stop there.
It is a hate bear.
But like, I don't know exactly what it's gonna do exactly. I mean, obviously silence on the backside is not bad, but again, it penalizes like Walking Ballista. It penalizes a lot of things. There's a lot of activated abilities that aren't mana abilities. Harsh Mentor never made the cut though. This thing is powerful. I don't know. I can see why you want to stop here, but I don't know what it's going to do exactly.
So I don't know about for D&T, but I just think like there is potentially a world where like a deck wants the silence effect on the back of the card and just wouldn't hate putting the body front half online. And Walking Ballista maybe no, because like Ballista shoots it and then it keeps going.
Yeah.
But I think there is a world where like Tron just really hates to see these. I think there's a world where like cracking fetches, this is annoying. And again, like having silence on the back half of the card is not nothing. Like there's definitely a world where you play the creature side, you recur it from the yard somehow, and you just have silence on your opponent's turn to win the game. Again, I don't know what deck is in red-white in that capacity, but I do think this is a card that could find its way into Modern. I don't know who or where, but just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and like I do like the design of a lot of these sets double face cards, where like the two halves kind of complete a whole. Where if you play the creature half and later on their turn silence them with the back half of like a second copy, they're now stuck with only their onboard permanents, which the front half punishes. So I think it's just super cute.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this is a card I'm interested in. I don't know. Again, like Harsh Mentor is whatever. Man, like Harsh Mentor deals way more damage than this, but like this thing can pump itself. It's got silence attached to the back of it. It might have just enough going on to matter somewhere. So anyway.
Yeah.
Next row here, we got our commands. We got some commands again, boys.
God help us. How do you feel about these new commands?
Is sick to my stomach an appropriate feeling? I don't. Like, here's the thing: the commands are really good. I hate how lopsided they always are. Like some commands are just way better than others. Prismari command is the second coming of Kolaghan's command. I find it frustrating. Witherblue, if you thought Kolaghan's command was bad at 3 mana, you're going to be really upset to find it at 2 mana in Witherbloom command, and then the Sliver Quill command is so close to being playable even for us, but like at 4 mana,
Yeah.
At 3 I'd feel more comfortable with it, but at 4, I just hate how lopsided this is. No one's casting the 5 mana command, I don't think.
Yeah, the Lorehold one.
Like, yeah, I wish they could balance these a little bit better, but Prismari's Kolagon's command, Witherbloom command is really, really good, and Silver Quill is so close.
Actually, I'm a huge fan of Silver Quill, believe it or not. I look at it from us in the lens of like D&T, like, hey, like, what makes this better or worse in a world of like where you want a K command and you're in a black and white deck? I think there's a world where we're covering like even like a Stoneforge Mystic or Thalia, Arbiter, just a million and one things. Giver of Runes, like there is enough reasonable things to get back onto the battlefield that could reset your board state. And I think drawing a card's no slouch. And then there's going to be those rare instances where just like, getting something up in the air with that flying and that giant growth could matter. So I don't know. I'm hurt that it's a sorcery. That's the thing that makes me say like I don't really want this card.
Yeah.
Is the sorcery speed. It's weird because like if you would have said if this would have been an instant, I'd probably play it. I'd probably like sideboard it in some capacity. It was literally the sorcery part that made me say, yeah, you can go away now.
Can you explain to me why this couldn't have been 3 mana? I mean, it's got Unearth, like its modes are like Unearth and like, sort of Dark Confidant for a turn or whatever. It's not quite, but like, Chainer's Edict. Like, doesn't this seem like it should cost 3
I'm
mana?
not sure why they're not all just instants. I don't know why the ones that had black attached to them got sent to sorcery land. So the only thing I can assume is like I'm hoping that they do testing for standard, and I can only believe that like something said that the black deck is too pushed if these things are at instant speed.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same as like Karen's. Like for Silver Quill command, a lot of these effects, 2 of them combined, feel like 3 mana. It doesn't feel like 4 mana. Like like Unearth plus a draw card does not feel like a 4 mana effect. Edict plus Pump Your Dude does not feel like a 4 mana effect. Let alone at sorcery speed. Like, I feel like they just like, I don't know, we're playing it too safe with this one. Especially when you look at the like Prismari command, where this is just like Colgan's command with a couple different modes on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean I think the commands are good. I don't know, like I'm in a world where like I'm starting to revisit the idea of playing Maverick. So like some of this stuff gives me some excitement to figure out like what kind of Maverick I want to be in, and I think Witherbloom, Pondrix, and Silver Quill just give me some really cool mental places to go. Like
Pondrix is such a tempo swing. I mean, that's like returning a creature, bouncing a creature, and countering a spell is just like you upend your opponent's board for 3 mana.
Yeah. And like
moving into this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and like having just some like kind of incidental graveyard hate. I mean, it's less relevant now that Earl's gone, but the like shuffle the 3 target cards is still relevant against like things like Dredge or like Snapcaster Mage.
It's modern in general. There's so much graveyard action happening in modern where like there's nothing wrong with just having incidental like, oh yeah, like I guess I could choose a graveyard hate effect.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
And I really hope Jund or like the Rock doesn't run with this like 2 mana Witherbloom command monstrosity, because I mean
they will. I promise.
The second and third modes are just a nightmare for us, right?
As someone who owns a paper Jund deck, I'm too proud to admit that, I guess.
It's on sale, by the way.
Witherbloom command is like an auto include. I think you easily cut like one of your assassin trophies, or like some decks still run terminate, but like there's easily one of your 2 mana removal spell slots that just goes, whatever. Put Witherbloom there, and you can sideboard 1 or 2 more. So, yeah. The red one pisses me off, the Lorehold command, because like
it's so bad.
Well, it's so like I love the text box. I just hate the casting cost.
Yeah.
The text box is great. Like I want to sacrifice my Flagstone and draw 2 cards. I want to lightning helix something. I want to make a body, and I want to make my creatures indestructible. I don't want to spend 5 mana to do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at this next row here. We got some really cool double-sided legendary creatures. Should we start on Plarg? Plarg?
Plarg?
Plarg, Dean of Chaos?
I mean, how many of these are actually playable? None of these really jumped out at me.
Oh, are you serious? No,
I
you
think
don't mean that.
I think Plarg is probably pretty playable.
Plarg is busted.
I mean, it's certainly good. There's no question about it.
He's like, I'm not gonna call it busted.
I'm
Let
not
me-
gonna
can-
I'm not
can I-
gonna I'm not gonna call it busted because someone's gonna break out the stenographer in a couple of months and then show me
Audit you.
show me how wrong I was. But
Yeah.
I do think the card is good.
Just a reminder, you guys built my coffin for me with me in it when I told people to play Maul of the Sky Claves and Archon. So just wanna
Never gonna
Throw
live
my-
that
throw
one
my,
down. Yeah.
just throw my reputation out there. No, all jokes aside though, so here's why I think this card's actually really good. This card, when I was describing like having two cards kind of built in, and it means that there's actually more than 275 cards in the set. This is a really good example of it. If you were a just mono white deck, you could actually still run this card as Augusta. Like your deck has Augusta in it, right? And the effect on Augusta, depending on what you're trying to get out of your deck, could be relevant still. Like it pseudo gives things vigilance and all this other fun stuff. It's kind of like it's got like an anthem kind of effect with your attackers and whatnot, or when you're on defense. Like there's enough going on here where this card, like, yeah, if I have room, I need one or two slots, like this card could be answering a problem that you really want to answer, right? Then you have this weird part of it where you're like, okay, well, I was maybe running to Augusta. I got one Augusta down, and then I drew my second one, and I have a Vial on two. Well, at the end of my opponent's turn, I'm just going to like put Plarg into play. And now all of a sudden I've got like a card that I don't even support its color, that my original card I was intending to run just kind of morphed into this other card, and now I've got a looter in my deck. But also too, like we do micro splashes, and sometimes we just run canopies. So like if I know that my deck has the ability to access Plarg, like maybe I'm on some baked canyons, maybe I have a couple red-white pathways or something, and now all of a sudden I have this crazy effect on my mono white deck that I traditionally shouldn't be able to access or support. To me, that's such a bananas place to be in, that even if I don't do it, I love it. I love that it exists. I love that it's there in front of my face, and I'm forced to deal with it. I don't know. Hearing that, what does that make you guys think?
I do want to mention that Solodoc pointed out that Fanny Pack had mentioned the synergy with Glory Bound Initiate. If you remember our pseudo Batterskull on 2 mana.
Another card that I got crucified for, but man, I do some stuff with aggro taxes.
Well, I mean, so now you have Glory Bound Initiate, you exert it, and then you untap it.
Yeah, so you make what? I guess it's still only
Batterskull.
Yeah,
well, I'm saying it's still only swinging for 4, but now it's a 4/5, and it's got the I can keep attacking every turn thing going on.
Yeah, it's a 4/5 with lifelink.
Yeah.
You could also like
I might be chiming in a little weird here, but like Smuggler's Copter also plays along with this whole line of pseudo vigilance. Like you could tap a creature, attack with Smuggler's Copter, and then get both those creatures back vigilant. It's kind of good. I don't know if it's gonna win games, but it could help a little bit, no matter what splash you're in.
Yeah, I think there's a world where like some decks are going to work themselves off of Stoneforge Mystic, and then when you have to do that, like you have to put something back in, and I think Smuggler's Copter is a piece of that pie some of the times. Like, yeah, I think Augusta is actually a really good card, and I think Plarg just so happens to kind of be like, you know, you invited Augusta to the party, and then she like just brought her boyfriend. Like that's what I look at when I see this card, and I'm like, I don't think I'm mad at that, you know. Like he's your like, all right, I don't know. Offbeat, you were gonna say something, but Eric, thank you for popping in and sharing that.
Yeah, honestly, this is a bit more interesting than I first thought. I guess Augusta is okay. I'm not sold on the like untap tap tricks. There are some cool stuff I guess you can do with like Giver of Runes, where you can give a creature protection before combat and then attack, and then Giver will untap and give like a second creature. So you can get like two guys in if you want, or give one creature protection from like 2 colors maybe. having Plarg is a bonus, I suppose, because then you can throw away extra vials, or just extra lands or whatever extra garbage you don't want anymore.
Shitty creature.
And then if you're playing Yorion, then I guess maybe sometimes you do the thing where you flip your deck.
What do you mean if you're playing Yorion?
I mean, I'm playing Yorion, but get up to 5 lands and tap. Maybe put a free Wisp into play is pretty neat. But I mean, obviously this card in action, this one doesn't immediately strike me as like, damn, look at this sick combo.
I think when I look at this card, like, yes, there's the vigilance tricks that exist with it, which are exciting. Like, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you. Like, giving my Wisp vigilance and then letting it be a 4-2 or a 3-2 blocker isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Also, like, Givers getting extra untaps, Stoneforgers getting extra untaps. Like, these things are not nothing. Like, they're going to be weird. I'm not jamming Augusta in my deck in like 3 or 4 copies of it to get to this stuff. I think like where I am currently sitting at, I have like 2 flex slots. And if I had to, or if I was really trying to get my deck to do something, I could see a world where this comes in. And I'm not mad on either side of this card. Like, I'm going to optimize based on tempo which one happens first. But like, my opponent really does have to look a little differently when all of a sudden, if I've got 5 mana and a Vial on 2 and I put Plarg into play, like, you can't just let me untap with that thing anymore. That's dangerous. Not to mention, you could actually cast Augusta and then flip it into Plarg later and just start having looter effects. Like, this card is... All I'm getting at is, even in the mono-white deck, this card is more than just a mono-white card. There's so many different things taking place in this card design space that, like, some decks are just going to do stupid stuff with it, and it's not nothing. It's not 0. And that's what I wanted to kind of stop and point out about this card.
It's a little reminiscent of like Scrib Ranger, which of course I know Catmix, you know, backwards and forwards is actually a pretty busted card. But the idea is like multiple Giver activations or Stoneforge activations is just sort of ridiculous. And I can see where you're coming from on the card. To change gears and push us along a little bit, I'm curious if does the Lisette, which is the backside of Valentine, does Lisette do anything for Heliod combo? Like, does Heliod combo want the backside of this for anything?
No.
Is it just too slow?
Heliod combo, by the time they get to that, like, they've already won the game. Like, they don't need this. They don't care about this.
Yeah, I think it's the mana requirement that really makes it not worth it anymore. Like, their combo hinges off of a low amount of mana, right? With both Walking Ballista and Spike Through being free. This requiring you to pay 1 to then, I guess, put counters on your guys is maybe okay if those maybe grindier games where you just have like Spike Feeder out without the rest of the combo. But
I mean, they run Gavany Township. I mean, like they prepare themselves a little. I see what both of you are saying, and it's probably right. But like, you know, they have a grindy plan. They have a plan for this. They run Gavany Township. They double the number of counters with Conclave Mentor. You know, adding extra counters to Walking Ballista is not bad. I mean, I'm only asking the question because it's reminiscent of the kind of things that Heliod's already doing. But I agree with you. I think it costs probably one too much mana, and the fact that you can't collect a company into it's really bad as well.
You know, I just don't think it has enough relevant effect in the game to like suit space for it, and they're not playing the front side of the card, so it's really just one card for them, and I don't think there's value there.
Yeah.
I do want to take 10 seconds here because I do actually think that for D&T, this card's also like one of these weird spaces where if like, again, we're in a spot where like there's less and less space available in your deck, but like that does mean we are in this weird spot where you're like play an extra land, play a sword, or like just say one of something. And I think when you have stuff like that, these cards can be more interesting when you're like, I just kind of need to like fill in this blank hole in my deck. This card's weird. It's not amazing, but I just think that like there's just some weird flexibility in the idea of like, okay, it's a 2-drop that has basically like this really strange kind of like anthem effect that it can do, but then also like later in the game I can vial Embros in, and like you can vial the backside in as long as it's a creature, right?
you cannot.
Yeah, I don't think you can, no.
Really?
Yeah, it only ever exists as the front side in your hand.
Correct. It is your front side. The card is the front side in all zones except the battlefield.
This card's not worth it then. So sorry.
Totally
All
fine.
right, we can move on.
The owl is cool though.
The owl's okay. It's not great. I wouldn't play this deck just for the owl. All right, so next row.
Vanishing Verse, dude. That's
Honorable
a
mention
card.
here to Venerable Warsinger. I think this card's cool. I think at 3 mana it's just too crowded in a lot of decks, but I do think the effect on the card is phenomenal. And like, I'll probably just pick this card up just because I really like the flavor of it. But let's be honest. We're here to talk about Vanishing Verse. I'll let you take it, Offbeat.
Holy, this card is sick! Oh my god. Like, okay, I know people have compared this to Ultimate Price, which is the same effect for 1 and a black, destroy target monocolored creature. But I mean, the upgrade to exile, but also permanent, is so big for modern that actually a surprising amount of threats are monocolored. There are a few outliers, of course, but a majority of the things plaguing modern right now are like 1 to 2 color decks, which this hits nearly all of their shit. I am hyped for this. It makes me think, like, maybe I splash black now and I cut Winds of Abandon just for this card. It's... Damn, I like this card. I think it's going to make, like, huge waves, not just for us, but also for, like, the Marduk Stoneblade decks, as well as like Esper Control. This card is crazy to me.
Can I point something? Go ahead, Karen.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say if I could point something out, this card is so phenomenal that like, if this would have been like, if this was not affected by Thalia, I would totally drop Paths for this. That's how incredible this card is to me.
Yeah.
Like, this card does exactly what I want a Path to Exile to do, with minimal downside, and then it can just hit permanents in general. So Fanny Pack pointed out a couple things since we're on the Fanny Pack train tonight. One, he talked about like this with 8.5 tails, which I'm never gonna do, but 8.5 tails can turn lands into colors, and then you can like exile lands. This thing can just naturally hit like Treetop Village and stuff like that. But then also too is like like I was gonna mention, like it hits man lands. Like this thing can hit lands if they're colored. So like this is a phenomenal card. It's an instant. It's not out of the realm of like us getting to it. I think this is probably in white the best removal we have had access to besides Path. I think we've officially got our version of like Assassin's Trophy. This is like as close as we've ever been to Vindicate, and I'm really excited for this card.
See, I like the card, but I am a lot less high on it than the two of you. I think that like by the time you're in the black splash, like the question is like how much better is this card than Fatal Push? And it has a time and place. There's no question. It's just like it'll hit a Jace, it'll hit a Stormwing entity. There's a whole lot that this card has going for it. But like a lot of the things that we want to get rid of are either colorless, like the Tron threats, or their artifacts like Ensnaring Bridge, or their like multicolored planeswalkers like any of the Tefris or something like my problem is like I don't think. Sorry?
I was saying I hardcore disagree.
What is it?
I
that
really
you think,
do.
What are you using this for that like is so much better, so much more versatile than like Fatal Push?
Primeval Titan.
Okay. All right, I buy that. But like then it's just like an Aven Mind Sensor. It's just like a Titan tag.
It's not though, because like this card is just straight up removal. Like it's, yes, I can't hit Karn, but neither could my Fatal Push. Like some of those targets, like your Fatal Push doesn't hit either. Fatal Push does not hit Teferi.
That's right, but at that point you're talking about like just run Anguished Unmaking for one more.
I don't want Anguish Unmaking. I want to be able to get all of the threats out of the way on board, and like the Ensnaring Bridge, like my Skycleave apparitions and stuff like that. Like for me to come near this card, its idea is being the additional copies of Path that I've not been able to have. Like I don't like Path. I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone, but like Path to Exile is like one of my least favorite cards, but it's like that's what we have. We don't have Swords to Plowshare. I want to get rid of my opponent's shit without them netting any value, and this is the first time I've seen in white an ability to do that without a substantial amount of mana to do it. That's what I see when I see this card.
I get it, but also you're not just in white, you're in black, and by the time you're in black, you have access to a different set of removal. So,
But you
I
don't
mean,
have any that do it on rate that doesn't cost you more than it costs your opponent.
I mean, again, fatal push isn't bad, or something like go for the throat if you're really digging deep. But like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but like, I don't think this is giving us anything that we haven't had access to before, unless we do something weird. Shout out to Fanny Pack and his 8.5 tails tech.
I still disagree. I think that's a beautiful place for us to be in on this, on like opposite ends of the conversation. But there's just more worlds I'm excited to be in with Vanishing Verse than it not being there.
Yeah, it like at its base, yes, this is basically a worse Skylight Apparition, and I mean, but that's not really saying that much because Skylight Apparition is a completely broken card. It's super good for us, super good. I mean, across formats. Verse, however, is one less mana, and it's instant speed, which I think is what really puts it into a contender for me. And yes, like push a lot of the time is going to be better than Vanishing Verse, but I mean there are those scenarios where both the exile part and the permanent part are going to be more relevant than fatal push. I mean hits like Heliod, hits Storming Entity, hits Primal Titan, hits kind of these like weird blind spots that things like push and apparition can't quite get to, which is why I would play it in addition to Path. I'm not a fan of Path, but I think Path plus this card really covers a lot of your bases where there's a lot of things where you're not going to be able to not hit. And then stack apparition on top of that. I mean, there's very few cards, I guess, fucking Karn Liberated dodges this, I suppose, dodges your Path versus apparition suite. But I think that's just kind of covering those slight other loopholes is super sick. And that's why I
guess if I want coverage, I want full coverage. I want Anguished Unmaking coverage. I mean, again, I can see that like Vanishing Verse is better in a lot of matchups, especially like Prowess and Titan and stuff like that. But like, it's blind. It does have some blind spots, and I'm concerned about those blind spots.
As someone who's like essentially grown up with Vindicate, like I've used Vindicate in a way where it was the closest thing I had to just like being able to answer problems without having to like dig deep into this toolbox. This gives me that exact same feeling again. Obviously there's cards that can't hit, but I think D&T as a whole hits a lot of those other cards with more powerful effects. This is black on the text box, but to me, the way that I build decks, and both of you guys know this, like that doesn't mean anything to me. I'll play for silent clearings and turn my flagstones into pathways, and now all of a sudden, like I can justify Vanishing Verse. And I don't necessarily look at Vanishing Verse as this thing where it's like I'm gonna start shoehorning this thing into my main deck for sure. But like again, I've been talking about having 1 or 2 flex slots, putting 2 main, 2 in the board, and having like essentially really clean answers to a lot of different stuff. Like I'm excited for this card. I don't know because like I don't know for certain that this card hits enough stuff, but like I see this card in a light that I'm excited for it. This is probably my first go-to card out of the set. This is pretty much tier 0 as far as like pre-orders for me. This is the first thing I'm going for.
Oh wow, that's some hype right there.
That's saucy.
Before we move on, I do want to talk for 2 seconds about Venerable Warsinger. I just think that it's an interesting design. I mean, the card is undeniably powerful. I don't know if we ever won it. I don't know if you can Violet it on 3. It's real good. It returns stuff to the battlefield. I think that there is a world where we played this card. I don't know exactly what the metagame has to look like, but I'm just going to keep my eye on this one.
Yeah. Venerable Warsinger is a really cool card. I saw some people, I don't know if it was in our Discord or Twitter, but like people were like, this thing, the Ritual of Elimination being like a super hype card. I'm not sold. I think that it's fun. I don't think this is any more dangerous than other things we've seen with like engineered explosives or likes. So that's just, I want to address that in case I forget it.
It's interesting since, like, if you play it right, you can clear your board and then refill in the same turn. But
yeah. All right. So this next road, does anything strike you guys? You want to stop and talk on?
I want to hype up Callous Blood Mage a little bit. this card is like what I wanted Turing Prince to be. Like all
this
three,
card's good for Turing Prince.
yeah. Just like all three modes are going to be relevant somewhere, and having the like exile target player's graveyard on a modal effect is so useful. Because sure, you're not going to use it in most of your games, but when you're against Dredge and you just have this main deck, you're feeling great.
Karen, do you have any takes?
I mean, the Blood Mage looks interesting. I don't have any takes on any other one in the row, but I mean, Blood Mage isn't bad, right? Like on rate, it's 3 power for 3 mana across 2 bodies, or 2 power, you draw a card and lose a life, or you exile. Like, it's doing things. I'm not mad at this card. I don't know, where it's going to see play exactly. I don't know if the D&T strategy is necessarily the right deck for it, but like, it's good.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think this is essentially Blade Splicer. I think this is like the evolution of where a Blade Splicer card goes, where it's just like, what do you want to do on 3 mana? I think these are essentially all the things you would ever want to do on 3 mana. I want to make a body. Maybe I want to grind out and make an extra body. Maybe I want to have a hate bear effect with the like exile a yard. Maybe I want to draw something better. When I first thought I was really excited about a card like this, but then I thought like on 3 mana and black, like I'd rather just Lingering Souls, honestly. Like this card's not bad. It comes down through Vial. I just think that once I've hit that spot where in my mind I've gone to a second color, this isn't the card I'm going to the second color for. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, that's fair,
sense.
yeah.
All right. So we have to do this weird pit stop because I know for sure we want to talk about this card here. And before we can do that, we kind of have to cheat and we have to talk about the Professor. So I forgot to do this, but I can easily pull this up because I think it's right in the
Professor's
trash
like all the
can.
way at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm just going to do this though.
We'll just Google it or something.
Well, I think I have the trash. I think I have it sitting in my trash from when I tried to make this keynote. Professor, there we go. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I was starting to make a keynote, and then I gave up because there's just too many cards. All right, so we got the Professor on screen now. All right, so let's talk about Professor / lessons.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay if I start this convo?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So lessons are these like things that we weren't sure if they were going to be enough, if there was going to be a reason to have lessons. And for anyone who's maybe not caught up, you can have these cards when they come in. They do something called learning, which is it allows you to reveal a lesson from outside the game. So Karn Wishboard, put it into your hand, and this card also has the ability to rummage. Instead, do all the learns actually have rummage? Is rummaging part of learn?
It is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, they
Awesome.
they added the ability because not all formats have a sideboard, so they wanted to learn to do something in those formats like Commander and shit.
Got it. So you can either actually go get your wishboard or you can rummage. The question we were asking ourselves, I think, for a while now was, is there enough cards that are lessons that are worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the value of a card? And this has been a conversation that's just been like on and on and on. I know me and Karens have talked about it. I talked about it with Ursats. And this card, the reason we have to take a pit stop here is because I think this is the perfect embodiment of making learning matter, even if the cards that are lessons aren't good enough. So getting this body on rate as a 2-mana 2/1 that can either be a ETB rummage or an ETB go get a lesson card from the board, as long as the lesson card literally isn't just styrofoam, like you're pulling card value ahead, and then we were waiting to find out if we would get enough lessons that would be worth it or not.
Yeah.
I think the answer ended up being yes, but like, do you guys feel like I missed anything on this, or do you want to add any additional context before we go back to the lesson cards?
I do think that in general, that rummage is worse than loot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like loot is like you draw then discard, and rummage is you discard then draw. And another thing worth noting is that the card is templated different from, say, Seasoned Pyromancer, where you don't get the cards unless you actually discard, versus Pyromancer, where you get them no matter what. And I think that's just sort of the extra context that I'd add.
Yeah, and we already touched on that. Like the power of this card really does leverage on the lesson cards. If this just said like when it ETBs this, if you discard a card, draw a card, we would be throwing it away. And I think the lesson cards, how they've been how they would have to balance them, kind of falls into the same window as the adventure cards, where a card with adventure on it, on average, has to be worse than the card without adventure because it has the inherent advantage of being two cards in one. So this is the same idea as that we're going to be seeing a lot of lesson cards have effects that we've seen before that are slightly worse or higher costed to balance the like perpetual tutoring going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just comes down to like, is that drawback enough to keep us away, or is it not big enough that being able to pull a perfect answer out of the sideboard is good enough?
So, and I'm going to answer what Kaladin asked here. He goes, how many lessons do you need out of your board for this to work? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is at least 2. I think 1 will get you in a safe place of like, it actually brings enough reason for the lesson to exist. But I think for it to be valuable, you need 2. Because you need to be in a board state or a game state where like hitting 2 professors, you can actually go and get the effect that you want out of the board and then not be locked out of like your next professor not being able to do anything but be a rummage bear. Mm-hmm. I think the actual quote unquote tutor side of the card's critical, and I think having enough things to tutor for is important. So yeah. I think we've actually really locked in on Professor. We can come back and revisit this after we talk a little bit more about these lessons. So let's go ahead and pull this back up and look at the lesson that we just skipped over, which is reduce to memory. Do you guys have any takes before I jump in and get obnoxious?
I mean, I think it's reasonable. Like I'm not mad at 3 mana 3/2 body, and again you have to. This is an extra card on top of the Professor, so like it's essentially like it's almost like Lingering Soul sort of, but in the reverse. The 2 mana side is you get a 2/1. Go grab this from the board, and then the 3 mana side is you get a 3/2, and so it puts 5 points of power on the board in essentially 2 turns. It's reasonable. I mean, this is defensible.
Yeah, it's a harder to cast Generous Gift at sorcery speed. That's basically what it is. We're not really playing Generous Gift. Maybe sometimes in the sideboard, but it's not like a staple or anything. But being tutorable out of the sideboard might make it good enough to just be like, I need a removal spell right now. I don't care that it costs 3 mana.
Sometimes it's not even a removal spell. Sometimes it's just creating an extra body on your side of the board. So, like, especially in our deck where we have Thalia, like, I don't hate, like, I'll use a really shitty example, but I just need something, right? I'm playing against Storm. I go Vial, my Professor. I choose to get a lesson, and I take your Barrels off the line. Thalia is going to be able to block a 3/2 all day, every day. Mm-hmm. Flicker Whisper is going to be able to eat this token, right? Like, the rate of value that I'm taking offline is more important than what I give you. To Karen's point earlier with like ensnaring bridges, like, there's times where you sit there and you like cross your fingers and you're like, please, let Skyclave be on top. Yeah. Now you have way more copies of Skyclave, right? Where it's just like, oh, Professor, Skyclave, Wisp, all these things are the same type of answer. And being able to like tutor and go get this is just a phenomenal feeling. Just not being stuck in board states. So to the question that Kaladin asked is like, how many do you have? In my world, I think I want like, I don't know how many Professors I actually want in the deck, but I want to reduce the memory in my board, and I'm okay with going down to a 13-card sideboard to bring 2 reduce the memories into my main deck, so to speak, without it costing me significantly on my deck's construction. So I don't know that I'll be locked in on 2, but like we know that we've gone through a lot of hoops to make Sky to our deck. Being able to essentially put more Skyclaves in the deck, you just kind of get the token immediately. Like, this card just seems really, 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 really valuable, and it validates the Professor. Again, I don't know that the 60-card deck is where you want this, but I think, like, Yorion, where you've already given up on your sideboard plans, sorry, Yorion players, please don't hate me, but you got to a point where you're like, oh, I need, like, 6 anti-red things because my sideboard, like, it matters because I'm not going to hit these cards as often. I think being able to use your deck as a game one strategy more often, I think the Professor and Reduce the Memory really plugged that hole really, really, really well in the Yorion build. So I kind of get a little jealous as someone who doesn't want to play Yorion, and seeing these cards come into the fold, I'm like, man, that actually looks really, really good when you don't have to like try and figure it out. Because then it kind of feels like you're playing with 8 Stoneforge Mystics. Kind of feels like you're playing with 8 Skyclave Apparitions. It's just really nice and flexible. I think we'll have more conversation around this as we hit some of these other lessons.
Yeah.
I do think that there's, I mean, again, there's no doubt that this is a very versatile spell. I mean, again, it hits bridges, hits planeswalkers. Again, for me, I'm looking to get rid of like extra vials, right? Like I put a vial and then I just reduce its memory, and now I have another 3/2 creature on the battlefield. I do think it's also worth mentioning that as a kind of extra interaction that we have is the token it creates is red and white, which means that if you got a Stoneforge Mystic and you have to get something, off your opponent's side of the battlefield, if you have a Sword of Fire and Ice, you're still going right through that token, which is worth noting.
Yeah, I think, the fact that it's not like your opponent's permanent or whatever it is, like the flexibility is important. You've never windmill slammed your second copy of Vial down so hard knowing that you're planning on getting rid of it. Like, there's going to be so many really cool interactions that just like, and also in a worst case scenario, right? Say you've hit 2 of your Professors, your lessons are out of the board, you've still got Rummage, right? You sandbag a land, now you're still like digging through your deck. Like, I think this is a really cool, interesting place for white to be in, and I can't believe that these are the cards I'm most excited about in the set. Like, I still think that Vanishing Verse is like the best card. Like, that's the one I want the most. I think these cards are the most exciting cards. So we'll see if they're good enough or not, but I look forward to them. All right, should we move on?
Sure.
We should, but before we pass the row, I want to just mention something really quick about Killian, Ink Duelist. On rate, this is actually pretty good. Lifelink Menace, it's 2 mana, 2/2. And then also that ability doesn't just reduce, like, spells you cast that target a creature, either yours or your opponent, cost 2 less. My guess is that this is going to break something. I don't know what it is or where it'll do it, but it's not bad on rate, and the fact that it reduces spells that target your creatures and your opponents seems really good.
Yeah.
It'd be hard in black-white, but yeah, I mean, it's fine. I think it's probably really just a really good draft card, which is probably why it's a legendary uncommon. But yeah, very good take on this. Let's see here. Next row, reconstruct history. I think it's a lot of text that is really fun, but I don't think we need to stop there. Is there anything in here that you guys need to stop on?
I just want to say that Expression of Repetition, the blue-red card, looks really good. I think...
and this is Impulse, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like Sleight of Hand plus Impulse. So, is this good enough for like Storm decks to play it? I don't know, but I think that's where you'd find a nice home for. The best case scenario is playing it on like turn 3 before you've made a land drop, and you exile a land, you play that, and then you put one of the cards in your hand, one on the bottom. So you've essentially paid 2 mana to draw 2 cards, which I mean is a great rate.
I think my only concern is that it's sorcery speed, but
yeah,
yeah,
that's about it. It just seems neat.
All right, this next row here. Anything strike a chord for you guys on this one?
I think Closing Statement's interesting design space. I don't think it's going to like do anything anywhere, but the fact that it costs 2 less to cast during your end step is a little weird as a template. I don't think there's anything else to say about it. I mean, it's powerful at a particular time in your turn, which is interesting, but I don't think it's going to see much play.
I think the part that I would like to acknowledge about card design, and you and I talked about this a lot, Charons, during the realm of Angelic Ascension, is what it was called, I think.
Yep.
But like, we didn't see enough cards like being able to actually kill planeswalkers. This set said fuck planeswalkers.
Hell yeah.
So many cards are like kill a creature or a planeswalker that it's actually really, really, for me, it validates that Wizards understood, like, hey, we got to stop this. Like, planeswalkers have fucked this game completely. So it feels like these cards were designed with the idea of killing creatures, and they're like, yeah, fucking kill a planeswalker too, why not? Like, We got to bring that into the fold. And like the fact that it's not sitting on rare levels anymore and it doesn't give your opponent value for killing a planeswalker feels incredible. I love to see it.
I think that's a great point. Although I will point out that it's like 10 years too late. But I do think that it's a great point. It's about time.
Yeah. No, I just think that like it's. We'll get to this later, but I think that we're seeing the game starting to feel healthy again, which is what I'm most excited about. It's like you can't always win, you won't always lose, but like the cards are starting to seem like they care more about like equity, like doing the right things on the right rate. And I know it's going to take way more sets than this for that to like really feel right and feel good again. But listen, man, I'm a king of like 4-1 and 3-2s if it means that like my opponent's play skills put me in the coffin, you know? And I feel like these cards are starting to feel more like in a direction built for that. All right, anything in this next row strike something up for you guys? No,
Not for me personally.
No, the green black Dina Soul Steeper feels like the wrong colors for this thing to be playable.
Yeah, green black does not give a shit about that effect.
Yeah, but if it was like white, you know, kind of with Oriok Champion or something, and you're pinning your opponent for 1 life every time a creature comes in, you're gaining life. That's pretty cool. But otherwise, this seems like a weird design space for me.
I think we obviously want to talk about Fracture here for a second, which again is the same thing, right? We got Disenchant that says fuck planeswalkers.
Yeah.
I mean, and instant speed. Killing a planeswalker at instant speed feels great. But you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I just can't believe we got Fracture and Verse in the same set. Again, there's nothing wrong with either card. Getting them both in the same set and you're going to have them in the same limited environment. I don't know. It just feels like someone designed this card twice, like erased a line and then threw it back in the file. I don't know.
I actually think that they did a really good job of separating, like, you know, pretty much everything Fracture can hit, Verse can't hit, and Verse can hit pretty much everything that Fracture can hit.
I mean, I can see what you're saying, but also there's definitely like an overlap of stuff that like just whose clock gets cleaned by the combination of removal spells and black-white in this set.
Yeah.
You know, again.
That's the part. Go ahead, Offbeat. My bad.
No, my only point here is I like all these like side grade upgrade cards they've been like pushing out. So this is basically just like Disenchant plus Planeswalkers, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see them probably further down. There's a couple other cards that are also just like existing modern playable cards that have been like adding one extra color and then getting extra effect, and it's like a side grade upgrade.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really, really good. Again, it boils down to what I was saying before, right? Which it just feels like Wizards is looking at creating a better median for the game instead of like, you know, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Like, I'm not excited for Fracture. I'm glad it exists, right? Like, Black-White was not playable because it wasn't easy to answer a lot of issues inside of those color pairings. And now all of a sudden, Black-White looks like it could be a thing. Like, you could do whatever junk is called nowadays, like black, white, green, like these color options, like Mardu might be able to actually do something, you know? It just feels good to see different shards being able to actually get the proper representation of card power.
Mm-hmm.
Next row, I think it's pretty safe to say we can skip, right?
Yeah, I don't see anything here.
I just think it's interesting to see Fork at common, but other than that,
yeah, Fork, for example.
I mean, Fork or Reverberate or whatever, seeing it at common's a little bit weird. I mean, we've never seen that kind of power downgrade, but I mean, again, it's not going to break the game. It's something we haven't seen before, but it's going to make for interesting limited stuff.
Yeah. I think I would challenge you, like, show me the last time you got reverberated out of a tournament, and then I would tell you I was concerned. The next time I see you chain smoking Marlboros in the parking lot, explaining to your friends how you got reverberated out of your SDG IQ, then I'll be like, yeah, that's fucked up.
I don't know what to say other than don't jinx it. Don't give me that. Don't make it so that the next time I get knocked out of a tournament, it's going to be by Reverberate.
I want to see you smoking a cigarette. That's the first thing I want to see.
Yeah.
All right, this next row I think has exactly what we're talking about, which is rip apart.
Yeah.
Just like get there. Like
Yeah,
I think it loses points because it's not an instant, but like we said, just more equity on the card. Who's going to be mad at that?
Yeah,
right. It's kind of in a braid substitute a little bit. Not instant speed, but does a little bit more. But it's also a little bit more restrictive on the mana. You got to be in red white, not just red. So yeah, a little bit of different stuff to consider there. But certainly there's a lot of words on that. A lot of modes on that text box.
Oh yeah, it definitely feels like what we've been saying earlier is that like it's a side grade of either a braid or like wear tear, but also 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. They're just like, you know what, fuck planeswalkers.
Yeah, good. I think it's long overdue.
Oh yeah.
I'm impressed that you can't. I'm impressed that you can't hit players with it. Like that's a little bit interesting to me. Again, it's not any target, so.
No, that's too powerful, I think, honestly. At that point, that's just in the main deck, isn't it?
Maybe. At sorcery speed, I don't know if that's, I don't know. Is it better or worse than Boros Charm?
When you're showing me a red-white Vindicate, I think I'm down to do it.
I mean, I'm not complaining. You and I can run Vindicate and red-white text. It'll be great.
You can't ensnaring bridge me in game 1. You can't planeswalk me out of the game in game 1. I can send it upstairs. I can hit your creature. I can hit enchantments. Yes. You got worship on your main deck? Get it out of here.
Can we throw a third bullet point on there that says destroy target land? That'd be nice.
There you go.
That'd be
At
great.
2 mana, ballads.
Yeah. That's all I want. Good, fair magic.
So that's what's the card? Cleansing Wildfire. Rip apart fires.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, this next row, I'm actually going to take a really weird pit stop, and you guys can laugh me out the room. But I actually think that Make Your Mark is like this. There's something really nasty happening here that I just can't let go of. The idea of like letting creatures get into combat and just like getting a 3/2 body out of it, no matter what. Like my creature dies, I put mark on it. Your creature's gonna die, I put mark on it, and I end up with a 3/2 body. I don't know. Like I know it's not a D&T thing. Like I just can't stop thinking about this effect. Have you guys looked at this and thought anything about it?
I mean, my first thoughts was that it was a meme because 1, it's a white card, and 2, it says when that creature dies this turn. Like, dude, your guy's gonna die. There's no like if it dies. It's when it dies.
Because there's no way you cast this thing without a creature dying.
Yeah.
In some regard.
But I can see this maybe getting played. Like I guess in like prowess, maybe this feels really bad. You're like forced to block a Swift Spear. They make your mark your guy. Swift Spear grows anyway. Swift Spear kills whatever you've blocked with, and then they get a 3/2.
I do think that's where the design space is interesting. Is like I target your creature and then I get the token. I do think that's what makes it different from something like Angelic Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always interested in the design space where this is kind of like a counterspell, right? Your opponent like fatal pushes and you respond with Make Your Mark, and then you get essentially just a
better body.
Yeah, you get your body back. It's the same thing with the Angelic Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the interesting part of this design space is exactly what you guys are talking about, which is I target my opponent's creature, and then all of a sudden I get the token.
Yeah.
I get extra value. Like, I just turned your 1/1 chump block into a 3/2 attacker on my side of the board for 1 mana. This is another card where it's like, I think I have to pick it up just out of obligation. Like, I don't know that I ever do something with this, but like, I don't know. There's just this weird world where I'm like, all right, I like put some of these in my board as like a, how like at some point in time you're thinking like Selfless Spirit or Ghost Away as answers for sweepers. What do you do when you have 2 of this in your hand and your opponent's just like Supreme Verdict? Like, yeah, just hit 2 of my creatures, make 6 points of power after you just tap down. I don't know. It just my brain triggers in a way that I can't really make sense of why this card hits me so.
Yeah, no. If you can reliably turn this into a 1 mana, make a 3/2, that's pretty good rate.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine. I mean, you can do. I can't think of like a great example off the top of my head, but like anything where you have the sack outlet and you want to be sacking creatures, this is basically just extra value, or could potentially be just a reliable 1 mana 3/2. I don't know what you're doing, Viscera Seer or Arcbound Ravager or something, but like doesn't seem bad.
It feels like the new Boros combat trick.
I mean, that's what it is, right? I mean, this is 100% just like a. it's more than just even a combat trick. Like this card is literally like Karen said, it's a counter spell. It's a way to like take being in charge way ahead. Like your opponent's forced to chump block. All of a sudden you get extra body out of it. I think that's the whole thing. Is like the design space on this card. Like there's more to this story, and I don't know what that story is, but like there's so many hidden layers on this card that like I think even right now, if this card could be put randomly into your deck, I think that you would find yourself in interactions where you're like, whoa, like this card just did so many things that I didn't think one mana of white or red mana could do. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that we are the people for that. Like D&T is probably not the best place for a card like this. But this is like, I think the part that throws us all off is it being a common just feels wrong. It feels like there's more happening on this card than at common rate.
It feels like what would you call it? Like Chef's Kiss Boros.
Yeah,
Like
it's just
for main space.
It's just so versatile. I mean, we've already been talking about all these scenarios where you just come out way ahead. That I think it being at 1 mana, instant speed, either pump your guy, kill their dude, pump your opponent's guy when they die, you get a 3/2, etc., etc. Just makes the card really neat.
Yeah.
My opponent targets Lurrus with a removal spell. I go response, make your mark on my selfless doggo, and then sack the doggo and get all the value back.
Yeah, put the doggo back in play. Have a 3/2 body.
Yep.
It's a bad day. That's a bad day. That's a real one.
That's a real bad day, and all it does is cost 2 mana.
All I want is you to like. I just rather you just manatize me. Like just don't let the lawyers die. Like why?
That's right.
Why make your mark on me? Yeah. So I'm excited for this card. Like I say, I'm gonna pick them up just because I'm a clown in that way. I probably never queue it up, but like it's a card I want to own.
Add it to the binder.
Yeah. Good job, Wizards, making me want draft cards. All right, Inkling of Summoning. It's a lesson. I don't think this is a lesson we'll go to, but it's just like important to acknowledge some of these lessons when they easily overlap into what we're doing. I think we can do better than a 2/1 flyer out of our board.
Yeah, it's definitely the bad side of like the lesson mechanic, right? Where they've overbalanced it to be tutorable, but I mean a 3-mana 2/1 is pretty bad, right?
I feel slighted because Pest Summoning, like if that would have been the black-white one, I probably would just put that in the board. If I can get 2/1/1s out of my board, like as a D&T deck, yeah, absolutely, please. Like that's exactly the value I want.
Yeah.
But 3 mana for a 2/1 body just feels like a joke. All right, I think we can kind of like just fly through these comments and forgive me. Here goes a lesson maybe worth stopping on. Like I don't think it's worth it, but like the 3/2 body just in red-white. I think we'd easily just be willing to sacrifice something to get that same rate with the other card. But just again, a lesson. Let's take a second to stop and look at it.
Yeah, I mean, even that compared to the mono-white lesson seems bad because it's like I can just get rid of one of my lands and get a 3/2, but it's also a kill spell instead of this.
Non-land.
Can't do land. It's gotta be a non-land.
Okay.
Non-land permanent.
Well, I could ditch my third vial then that I've drawn this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that just, and here's the part too. Like if I don't have a board, then like I could literally just get rid of the professor and then turn the professor into a 3/2. Like to get to the reduced memory, you should have something to target.
Mm-hmm.
Like it shouldn't be. Yeah, we should.
I mean, I'm not mad at five power across 2 bodies. Again, it's kind of like it's not as good as Lingering Souls, but it's not bad when I can tutor it up out of the sideboard.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Like I'd have to have more empirical data to speak to it more. But I think like these all being at sorceries and whatnot, it just feels bad. Like if I could do that, like in a turn, Violin Professor, instant speed, make it 2/1 flyer, maybe that's enough on value. It's enough on rate, but at sorcery speed, I'm like, I don't know. All right, so we made it out of there. I mean, I don't think these lands are exciting. I think we all know what they do. They won't have an impact on Modern. All right, so we get into some mono-colored cards for once. Any of these mythics on this top row worth stopping for you guys?
No.
I mean, I think that, like, again, this is sort of like the over the topness of this set and the like weird. I really do believe that there's a lot of things in this set that are kind of flavor wins and design wins, if nothing else. And this top row is full of like interesting, powerful effects that like I don't know whether or not I'm supposed to be afraid of, but like that's what makes them interesting. So I don't know. And there's nothing really that stands out to me in the top row, although I will say that the backside of the blue card is like a little weird for some of the Titan decks. So
You have to have them in hand, which is going to be hard. So I'm not sure about that one.
no, I know what you're saying, and you're totally right. But it's just like it's a little. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to make of these things.
Yeah. My concern is actually, believe it or not, Mavinda, and not for us as D&T decks. But I think this is like something that makes Infect incredibly scary. Like I think Infect has avoided splash in a third color just because they haven't had to. But I think there's a world where they're just like, okay, we just put like two, like, I mean, I'm not even paying attention. Maybe they have a Triumph that's the exact colors that they want. But I think them having a card that's just like, yeah, like, let me cast Gitaxian Probe. Let me use Gitaxian Probe. Let me cast, like,
Yeah, probe is banned, but they can do mutagenic growth, which is really the dangerous one.
I said Gitaxian, but I meant mutagenic.
Yeah.
Mutagenic, or the scale, what is it, scale up?
Scale up, yep.
Like, there's all this weird shit where it's just like, this card just does it for no cost, and it doesn't really take them too far out of realm to play one or two of these. I don't know. It maybe is like laughable for an Infect player to hear that, but like casting your own spells on your own creatures for free just seems kind of scary.
Yeah, I feel like this is this feels more like a combo piece to me than maybe some sort of grind piece. Because like this plus like Ephemerate lets you cast a spell for free, or give a spell flashback from your yard, and then you Ephemerate it. You can do it again, and then I don't know. Maybe my brain is like too like smooth to figure it out, but be able to like any kind of reliable way to reset this and do it again leads me down a dark path that screams like some sort of You're Dead combo to me.
Yeah. All right, next row we've got Mila, which is Luca's companion. And
companion.
I mean, it's got it in its title. It's Luca. All right, everyone relax. Everyone, don't get too triggered.
Companions, dude.
Yeah. But I don't know that we ever care about the 6-mana Luca side. I think you could support it by playing red-white pathways and some Sunbakes in the off chance that it were to happen. But I do think that there's some players who could value from just like, okay, I'm playing against Jund, you're going to clearly target my shit all the time. Let me draw some cards. Especially if you have something like Giver, like you can make it really awkward for your opponent to like really get through and not give you a bunch of card advantage. So I think Mila is like a card worth owning. I just think that it's too bad on rate at 3 mana. It's a really awkward space to be in. We don't run Planeswalkers. I don't know. You guys have any takes on Mila or Mila?
It's mostly correct. I mean, I think that it's really hard. Like the 3-mana slot is really hard to make the cut these days, and it's nice to have. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the green enchantment, but it's basically that slapped on a white creature, and
The Sanctuary.
yeah, thank you. I can't. Yeah, the one that like elves and stuff runs. But like I don't know if it's going to make the cut at 3 mana. The nice thing is you can vial this in, so sure, go ahead and vial it. But yeah, I don't totally know. One thing that I did have a thought as we're talking about this, but of course I don't remember seeing anything. Was there anything that we missed that we were going to get flicker value out of? So like it's cheap on the backside and expensive on the front?
No, there's none of that. Everything seems to be pretty expensive on the backside.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a lesson that they learn pretty quickly.
Do they learn lessons quickly?
Well, I mean,
is that a thing that wizards can do?
We had lands turning into like 6/4 red creatures that cost 9 mana on the front side, and none of that exists in this set. I think they, from what I've seen, it looks like they've made the philosophy to be the more expensive card is always on the back side.
If I could insert the like Morrow
Well, maybe
phase
not.
into the verbal conversation, like this is exactly where I would throw it. Just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Permanence, I should say, because
Yeah.
like this one's a spell on the backside, but like permanence, when it's a permanent on the backside, it seems that it's always more expensive on the backside.
No.
well, maybe they did learn something. But yeah, I do think it's probably Milo's probably not going to make the cut. But it's interesting design space. It's certainly a good card. It's just it's got stiff competition.
Yeah,
So
Mila's
oh,
fine,
sorry.
but like it's one of those cards that like if it was gonna fit somewhere, it probably does fit in D&T pretty well. It's just not quite as good as our other 3-drops. Because I mean, a lot of some of our best board states are where we have a bunch of creatures that they need to all get rid of, right? If we have like a Thalia, an Arbiter out, and Mila out, they want to kill all 3, but it's like what order do you do it in? So they don't kill Mila first, we're getting card advantage. If they don't kill Thalia first, they're being taxed on their non-creature spells. They're not killing Arbiter, right? We all know this, like Song and Dance. So I mean, that's the scenario where it excels the best. Worst case scenario, you play it and it gets killed immediately, and it replaces itself. It's okay, but it seems pretty medium for me for like taxes anyway.
Yeah, I'm probably not going anywhere near this card. Poet's Quill, I hate to stomp on people's rainbows, but like we already don't want like Shadow Spear. Like people are like not gonna play that, and Shadow Spear is cheaper, and then it's easier on the mana requirements, and
Yeah.
all you get out of this is a learn. I actually don't know if like even if I was in a second color, if I'm cutting into my deck's ability to function so that I can go learn off of my equipment. Like that's such a weird domino effect of like Stoneforge to go get Quill, to get Quill into place so I can go learn so that I can finally cast my lesson. Like I get that it's snowballed card advantage. It just doesn't seem like the right snowballed card advantage. I don't
Yeah,
know. That's just my take on that.
it's very
Yes,
cute,
17. Yeah.
but yeah, it's
I
just,
mean, I think that's probably right, but I do think that like it raises interesting questions that we'll probably come back to about Professor of Symbiology, right? Like there is a big difference between the learn coming on a 2/1 body versus having to be like tutored up, but like you know, it's interesting because it's a similar rate.
Yeah, I mean, it's costing the same mana. Like they both just, I mean, there is something interesting to think that like your equipment coming into play will allow you to rummage. Like I will admit that I missed that the first time around. I just don't know. Like that's just a lot of work on a second color. Like I don't want an equipment on a second color if I don't have to. It's already bad enough trying to figure out how to get artifact equipment into the battlefield. Now I got to make sure I hit color requirements on casting it or equipping it. No thanks.
yeah.
All right, so then we have all this stuff here. Any of this stuff you guys want to stop on?
Do you think Rowan makes it into Storm?
Probably not.
Too expensive?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
too
already
expensive.
like out of space. They're so out of space.
Still dies to Bolt.
It's true, but it only dies to Bolt. It's a little
Fair.
bit harder to kill. I mean, it's legendary, which isn't great, but it's a little bit harder to kill than a Goblin Electromancer. I don't play Storm, so I have no idea, but I figured I'd ask the question because that's sort of the logical place for it to go. Although it's not like it's bad in a value deck. It's not like it's bad in like Red Blue Snapcaster.
I just think that 3 mana is a lot on Storm. That's because they don't look at their game plan as necessarily just mana cost. They look at mana cost and turn to cast it. Having to wait till turn 3 to get your mana reduction is pretty scary.
Yeah, and like Burrell being a 1/3 body isn't negligible either. I mean, it Stonewalls Thalia and Arbiter, but this card comes down a turn later and doesn't Stonewall any creatures, and that means that you're not going off till turn 4 at the minimum.
But it's a tempo play, right? Like
Yeah.
when it comes down, your opponent has to deal with it because if they don't, if it ever goes off, then you're in real trouble.
It depends what your opponent's deck is. Your opponent's deck might not care about your turn 3 realm.
Oh, for sure. Then maybe it goes in the sideboard. I mean, you're completely correct. I just don't think like it's not like this comes down turn 3 and then your opponent gets to ignore it. If nothing else, it's gaining them 3 life de facto.
Yeah.
I don't think they have the room. I think it contradicts way too many of their cards, like what is it? Pieces of the puzzle and things that look specific for instants or sorceries. This card just hits like a very specific card type where they're just like probably not interested.
That's fair.
Um,
What do you think of this black removal spell?
I think it's stupid. I don't know why this is a card people are excited about. We have so much good removal,
This
and
like exile creature or planeswalker for 1B, and then they could like draw a card.
yeah, I don't think it's good enough.
I actually think it's really. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's interesting design space. I don't know why. I'm a little frustrated that like black has its. I mean, it is the color of removal, but it just has its choice of like 1,000,001 removal spells. What's frustrating about this card is that it's really cheap on rate, and even if it gives your opponent a card, sometimes it's not an issue. Like if your deck is revolving around Liliana of the Veil or something, or if you have a Thoughtseize in hand or something. It's just like, depending on what the rest of your deck looks like, giving your opponent the card isn't that big of a cost, and it could be potentially a large tempo swing to remove it for 1 in a black mana. So, if you remove your opponent's Teferi for 1 in a black and then you tick down your Liliana, that's a blowout. So, I can see places and times where this card is good. I don't know if it's necessarily the best against our deck specifically, but it's interesting design.
Yeah, I mean, it's very meh to me. I think the Phoenix is interesting. I think the Phoenix is incredibly interesting. I don't really care to think too much about it, but I think learn on the Phoenix mechanic is really cool.
No.
All right, moving down here. I don't think there's anything we really need to talk about in this row. Let's see, sparring regimen. I don't see anything in this row. Do you guys see anything in this row?
Can we talk about the waste of design space that Leonin Lightscribe is?
No, we're not gonna.
A 2/2 cat cleric.
I'm not gonna lie. I saw the art, and I was like, "We did it, boys. We did it.
We got it. Arbor and Standard.
I'm not sure I could come up with like a thing I want to do less than the text box on Leonin Lightscribe, but that's fine.
I'm like, what instants and sorceries do you think are in white? Like, why is this a white text box?
I understand that it's on brand, it's on theme for the rest of the set. It's just funny to me that this is exactly the opposite of what white cards want to be doing, what Taxes wants to be doing. So this is fine, whatever.
Yeah. It's also like what kind of
Let
deck?
me get this straight. You want me to load my deck with creatures, but then you also want me to figure out how to load my deck with instants and sorceries that make this guy's pumping the board relevant.
Well, I mean, the gag. So the gag of this card. Right. So before we actually just like throw it totally under the bus, this is prowess. It gives all of your creatures prowess, which is nutty in like the red white prowess deck, which may or may not exist, and maybe we'll come to that card as we scroll down. But like, Lightscribe basically says each of your creatures gets prowess, which like in the right deck, that's actually pretty nasty. But it just doesn't happen to be our deck.
Until somebody kills your prowess box, and then all of your creatures are 1/1s.
Well, it's a double prow, right? Like turn 1 Swift Spear, turn 2 Lightscribe, turn 3 Lava Dart. That's nuts.
Yeah, maybe this is what the red white prowess deck was looking for. Who knows? I'm already off of it. All right, moving forward. I think we just have to acknowledge this stupid card so we can move on. Strict Proctor.
Yeah.
Any takes on it?
Well, I mean, it's a variant of Hushbringer, so we'll start there. You got to compare it to Hushbringer. What it does stop that Hushbringer misses is like amulet triggers. So like it's got a time and place. The problem with it is it also hits all of our effects. I mean, we probably don't want to be doing it, but there was a time and place when we were playing Hushbringer in the right metagame, and so potentially in the right metagame, maybe there's a place and time for Proctor. I don't know.
I fucking hate this card. I hate that this is even a conversation. It fucks us up so much. It fucks Batterskull. It fucks it fucks so many of our shits, dude. Like, I don't know. We can't really look at this card. I'm gonna laugh at anyone that puts this card in their 75. I'm gonna just laugh you out the room.
You're really gonna laugh when somebody trophies with it.
I'm gonna giggle that you've never seen.
Dude. 4 copies in my 95. Let's go.
I don't think this is a card.
Don't give Offbeat a reason to put this in his 95.
Do it.
I'll do it.
I'm not mad at people innovating. I just this just doesn't tickle me in the right way. I'm just like, this hurts you way more than it hurts the decks you're trying to hate on.
That's probably
not
fair.
Only is he gonna play Yorion, he's gonna tax his own Yorion trigger.
Yeah, dude. Gonna make your one cost 2
7.
more for the initial trigger, and then an extra 2 for all my ETB creatures that I flickered away.
It just breaks my heart that like this one's like, what's that old school joke? Like, why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's neat. Maybe a sideboard card. You know, like because like as we said, it hits amulet triggers, but also hits their bounce lands, which sometimes can be a double-edged sword.
Makes me mad because it doesn't say opponents. Like it should have just hit opponents.
Yeah,
Like we did it
opponents
with
was
other
like.
cards all the way up to this point. I don't know why this one all of a sudden was like, well, you better watch your own shit too.
I mean, that was some like 2019, 2020 card design. We're in 2021. Now everything's symmetrical.
Yeah. All right, I think we can skip this section here.
What's the most busted thing you can do with a free flame painter?
Free
The red one.
flame painter. Let's see.
Pack your cards up and drive back home from the venue and just not waste everyone's time.
I don't know. Probably some really dumb extra turn spell.
It's an ultimatum, right?
Ultimatums are good. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
we've seen this kind of text box before. What was the one with Exert? The like I forget what it's called. It was like Celebrant Fighter or something like that. It was like a 4-1 first strike and Exert. And if you hit, you took extra turns and all this shit. Like
Yeah.
this is that exact same ballpark where it's like, all right, here goes 4 mana. You better never let me get into like my untap and then these other convoluted things I'm gonna do to make sure that like it just feels ridiculous.
All right. Hear me out. We're gonna break everyone's favorite broken extra turn spell again. We're gonna go Nexus of Fate with a free flame painter because Nexus already replaced itself to go back into your deck instead of into your graveyard, so it won't be exiled. And you just take infinite turns because we're in Magic Christmas land and everything works out.
Here's the thing. I can't imagine that Spider is ever going to listen to this, but I hope that like this doesn't give him ideas. The last thing I want to do is play against the deck that Offbeat and Spider are currently conspiring to build, and I just maybe this is not a good conversation. I don't know.
Yep, I've already lost interest in
Moving
your
on.
for double strike that needs to deal combat damage. I'm already off of this combo. Saladoc asked us to talk about Conspiracy Theorist.
Sure.
Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1. If you do, discard. If you do, draw a card. Whenever you discard 1 or more land cards, you may exile 1 of them from your graveyard. If you do, cast it this turn.
So madness
Yeah,
with
that's
extra
okay.
steps.
I mean, there's like random upside. I don't know that this body makes it through Modern. I think by the time you've built this convoluted strategy with Conspiracy Theorist in Modern, you feel silly. Like I think you have Seasoned Pyro in Modern, we have Copter in Modern. We just have way more effective things. I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. I struggle to see the power in this card.
I think it's just another kind of Arcanist variant. I mean, it's not quite as good as Arcanist, but it's all about like, what's the value you can get out of, what's the torment mechanic where you can cast a card when you discard it?
Madness.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, like it's sort of madnessy, isn't it? Like it's
Yeah.
all about the value you get as it's going into the graveyard, or in this case, out of the graveyard. But it's just like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if it has a home. It's got a very madness vibe to it, and I think it's frustrating for us as D&T pilots a little bit. It's like your opponent's got these like creatures that you can't ignore, but you really want to. And so if there's a sufficient, critical mass of like dorks that I can't ignore, then the matchup suddenly becomes hard. But I don't know. I don't know that that's getting us there or not.
All right. Next up, we have another lesson. I don't think this lesson's good, but like, would you guys put this in your lesson package based on what we talked about it being like something that's potentially relevant? I don't know. How do you guys feel about academic probation?
I would put 1, honestly. Because, I mean, just like the first bit, choose on card name, opponent can't cast spells with that chosen name until your next turn. That's relevant against any kind of deck where it has a singular win condition. So, I mean, we talked earlier about, like, vialing in the, like, prof to grab one of our lessons out. And, I mean, grabbing this against, like, Amulet and then naming, like, Primetime, not a bad play if you're pretty confident that they are going to have the mana next turn, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. You're like, well, I might as well delay prime time for one turn. This also works not bad against like Tron if they've resolved a like Karn Liberated or like an Ugin and you're somehow still in the game. You can be like, I guess I choose your Busted Planeswalker and it can't do anything until your next turn. So it buys you a turn. This is a like buy you a turn spell. And I think this is worth at least one slot.
I think if you have some knowledge of your opponent's hand, it gets better. But in general, like, I already hate the like whack-a-mole-ness of Modern, where like you're sitting there trying to like, do I name Karn Liberated? Do I name Karn the Great Creator? Do I name Ugin? Do I name, and like, I hate to like guess and get it wrong. So like, maybe if you have knowledge of your opponent's hand, but like other than that, I'm probably not going for it. I don't think it's bad, but it takes extra work. Otherwise, you're just naming stuff in the dark.
Yeah. It should have just been silence, in my opinion. Like, just straight up let me silence my opponent. I mean, maybe that's too powerful. I don't know, but I'm not excited for this. I probably don't put it in my plan at all. All right, let's see. All right, here we go.
Hell yeah.
What was it?
The man of the hour.
I wasn't mad about this convo until I realized how long we've already been on this call. All right. I'm just going to do my diatribe and just get it over with, and you guys can just tell me to shut up. All right, so I've said this ad nauseum at this point, but it's really important for us to hear this. This card's good. It's just really good. The body is on rate, 3 mana. That's really easy to cast. I didn't mention this one at all in my previous conversations, but like when you look at Wisp being white, this one's just white double colorless. It's a 3/1 flyer. The body's great. The text box on the card is incredibly difficult to actually unpack and make sense of, but like I'm going to do my best to do it quickly. It does not care whether the creature lives or dies. It's going to tax the card all the same, which makes this a way higher flicker value. It also allows you to be very proactive with the card because you're no longer trying to wait to get extreme value out of it. You can like aggressively on turn 3 take a card that they were planning to cast on their turn and essentially time walk them down and delay the card by making it cost 2 extra mana. And that's not even assuming you have Thalia if it's a spell where they're now going to end up paying 3 mana to unlock that spell, which means that the elite Spellbinder gets to deal more damage along the way. The telepathy side of the card, being able to just see your opponent's hand and get information that allows you to function and play better. The tempo side of this card, where it's like turn 2 Thalia into turn 3 this on the play, just makes it some decks just can't catch up fast enough. I am really mesmerized at how many people think this is a bad card for D&T, because I'm in a world where I'm like ready to start cutting into my Wisp section to play this card. So I did that as quickly as I could so I could give room for you guys and we could spend some time here. What are you guys thinking when you look at this card?
I agree with you. I mean, I think the card is really good. You know, to use the cliche, it's like an onion, just has so many layers. You just keep peeling. I mean, I think that the card is just exactly what we do. The floor on the card is it just like you see that your opponent has no gas, I guess. I don't know. I mean, like, you're always taking something. The flicker value is high. You're swinging for 3 in the air. It's easy to cast. It's non-legendary. Just this is basically everything that we want to be doing at 3 mana. And I'm with you. I think if it's gonna cut into anything, it's probably gonna cut into Wisp slots. I think that ultimately the best way to frame this card, and Catmix, you and I had talked about it briefly before, but like there's a spectrum of like proactive, reactive threats. Where like if you look at a gem deck, a proactive threat is like Thoughtseize, right? Or something like that, where you get out in front of your opponent's actions. And then a reactive threat is like a Fatal Push or something, or it's a reactive answer or whatever it is. But the idea is like, are you being proactive or are you being reactive? The problem, insofar as there is one, with Flicker Wisp is that Flicker Wisp is almost always, not always, but almost always reactive. Sure, sometimes you throw it out onto an empty board and sometimes you like Wisp your Stoneforge Mystic or something, but like a lot of times you're holding it up for some kind of reactive trick. You want to respond to what your opponent is doing. The nice thing about Spellbinder is that it's not reactive, it's proactive. And like every good deck has a mixture of proactive and reactive threats, and this is basically the proactive version of Flicker Wisp or the proactive version of Thalia. You're going to jam this on turn 3. you want to know what your opponent is going to have in their hand. You're going to disrupt their sequencing. This is exactly what Taxes wants to be doing. And so the thing that I like the most about it is that it is proactive and not reactive, and it sort of changes our sequencing and how we play the deck.
Yeah. Another part that I laughed at today, I was talking earlier on Discord, was like when your opponent's like, all right, Stoneforge Mystic, go get Batterskull, and you're just like, third land, Elite Spellbinder. That Batterskull now costs 7 mana no matter what you do.
Yeah, you can't cheat it in. That's also a very interesting edge case, is that you exile the card and it stays exiled. They can't put it back in their hand. So, I mean, against opposing Vial decks, you're basically saying, like, you can't Vial. One, it costs 2 more, and you can't Vial this in ever. You have to cast it for its hard rate. I'm pretty high on this card. I mean, as mentioned before, like, just being able to see what your opponent's doing in a mono white deck is pretty nutty. And there's many games where you play Thalia, you play like Arbiter, any combination of your 1 to 2 drop high target removal threats, and it kind of creates this kind of house of cards where once they kill Arbiter, they can then fetch and then kill Thalia, and then it kind of all comes like tumbling down. Where Spellbinder kind of throws the final wrench in those plans, where it's like, man, once I can resolve this like Assassin's Trophy, like, I'm back in the game, because Assassin's Trophy gets rid of Arbiter, I can fetch, then I get rid of Thalia, etc. But if you go like Thalia, and then turn 2, Violent Arbiter, and then play Spellbinder and take their like last hope of coming back, like, the game's over.
I mean, the fact that it swings for 3 in the air is just...
It's huge.
I mean, it's fantastic. And it's also like the kind of head games that you get to play with your opponent on this. Like, imagine your opponent has a piece of removal, and you have like a Vial on 3, and then like you like hard cast Spellbinder, and you don't take the removal. Your opponent's just like, what do I do now, right? Because like you're signaling that you have Wisp, and like if they go after anything on the board, I mean, that's it. I mean, they can't not get rid of Spellbinder, but they can't get rid of Spellbinder. If they try and go after Spellbinder, you're going to Wisp it, and then the game just ends.
Yeah.
Spellbinder becomes a 1.5 for 1, right? Like, where it's like, this card costs you way too much mana for it to be relevant, and if you ever go after Spellbinder, I don't lose anything. You don't get your card back. The reduction doesn't go back. Like, I have a proactive 3/1 flying body that disrupted you. Like, this is Reflector Mage that Reflector Mages before you actually cast the card.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to be Time Walked? Because here goes Time Walk. And can I also mention that we've only ever mentioned situations that occur with one single copy of Spellbinder. We have yet to mention, like, what it looks like when you go turn 2 Thalia, turn 3 Spellbinder, turn 4 Spellbinder, and just basically hem your opponent's hand away with 8 points of power on the board.
It does seem really good, and the thing like carries a sword like a boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also covers the like blind spot in Taxes, which has always been creature spells. Right? Thalia usually hoses everything else, but if we're against a creature deck, I mean, our tools are like removal and like Stoneforge Mystic. But Spellbinder coming in and then like taking away a human's player Mantis Rider is huge.
This card, I feel bad because I was memeing about how, like, yeah, we're going to get Flicker Wisp out of this format, and I'm going to put my little baseball diamond on everything now. And, like, I genuinely do think that this card fights for Wisp in its space. I think there's a world where you can keep 1 or 2 copies of Wisp around just for, like, that. Actually, I don't even know that that's true. I'm going to just straight up call it. I think Wisp might now be Restoration Angel. I think we're in a spot now where it's just like, at this point, Restoration Angel does everything that we want Wisp to do in the way that we build our deck.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I don't know anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
It is very hard to say because, yeah, at least Spellbinder clearly it is a very like Wisp-like card in that sense that it's a 3/1 flyer and it comes out on 3 mana. But it also synergizes with Wisp, right? Because we talked about like, hey, second copy of Spellbinder coming down. But I mean, when you have Wisp in your deck as well, those also become additional copies of Spellbinder when you play the first one. You can do the
but so does Resto.
Yeah.
I mean, it does
The rest
cost
is
one more
gonna-
mana, and you want to keep your vial on 3. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to dive into the resto plan immediately, but I could definitely see us landing in that spot. I just, again, the question is like, what's the best version of Wisp? And like, it might still be Wisp, but it's not necessarily clear. And of course, the Yorion version is probably going to look different than the 60 version.
Yeah,
So,
Yorion doesn't even have to think about this. They're just like, yeah, just run 4 of each, and whatever.
I mean, I'm thinking
Um,
about it.
But I think in 60 card, when you only have 1 or 2 slots left over, I don't see it being wrong to just have like the resto and just, okay, I'm going to Violin Elite. Oh shit, you have 2 cards that I need to deal with. Take the 1 and then resto, redo this. You don't get any additional value because Elite Spellbinder's wording is perfect. And I just take both cards. All right, well, the
Even
game's
like,
over. I've
yeah,
already seen.
even doing like Vial on draw step or like Resto on draw step is brutal. Like, holy.
Yeah.
I can't wait to take a Batterskull out of somebody's hand or to take their companion out of somebody's hand. My opponent puts the Luris in their hand. Yep. Nope. Not anymore. That Luris is going to cost you 5 mana. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Nice time walk.
Nice. Well, it's not even that. It's like your opponent who. What are the odds that your Luris opponent has the 5 mana to cast it? Like, it's not even obvious. It's just like half those decks just want to grind you into the ground, and they're going to attrition both of you until neither of you have any cards in hand. But like, making your opponent's Luris cost 5 can set him back several turns.
What I mean by that, there was like time walk in the sense of you took a turn off to pay for companion. Your turn was going to be like Luris, get something back out of the yard.
For sure.
And it's like, yeah, now you've done nothing for the last turn and a half. You've tapped your mana and passed the turn.
This just seems really good. I don't understand the group of people who thinks this card is not gonna be good.
Because this text box is really hard to make sense of because it's just like it seems like it's really narrow when it's like when you read it and you go tax 1 card for 2 mana, you're like, but they still get to cast the card. But I think the part that gets missed is like this card goes into a D&T deck where you're already taxing on so many different levels. The body is incredibly proactive, which we're not used to seeing on white cards in such a way. And then also the fact of like we're not looking at like assume you didn't even tax the card, right? Like I don't hate being able to see my opponent's card. Obviously the exiling the card makes me want to play 4 of it. But if this card like was worded a little differently, I'd probably still be in a world where I'm like, man, fuck Archon, give me 2 of these cards. So like as a D&T deck, I can see if my opponent actually has the K command or not. Are you bullshitting me over there? Look, you've been bullshitting me this whole time. You're holding bullshit. You don't have anything in your hand. Like, like I'm gonna just put my sword down and go to town now. Like that information alone is worth so much weight in gold. Being able to tax specific cards out of the hand, be aware that they're in the hand, put an aggressive body on the board that like killing it doesn't like. I hate Tide Hollow Scholar because you kill it, you get your card back. It didn't cost you anything other than taking my threat out of the way, which usually was incidental, right? Like you didn't really care. Right. It was just easy to get the Tide Hollow Scholar offline and get your card back. Now it's just like, you kill my 3/1, it doesn't change anything. You've taken a turn where you still haven't cast a spell that I was most concerned about. And, like, I'm still chipping in with a 3/1 flyer since turn 3. Like, a lot of games we lose because we're not aggressive fast enough.
I think you're totally right. Again, this gets back to the proactive reactive discussion, right? Like this is a proactive card, and most of the time in Magic, you want to be proactive. That's why Tron wins games. That's why Titan wins games. It's because they don't care what you're doing. They're proactive, and so being proactive is generally a good strategy in Modern. It's generally a good strategy in Magic, and I think that having the ability to just go into our opponent's hand on turn 3. Right? You don't often just like lead out with your Flicker Wisp at sorcery speed. That's not usually a thing that's happening with Flicker. I mean, it happens every once in a while, but it's not usually the thing that's happening. And being able to lead out at sorcery speed with Elite Spellbinder is actually kind of unique in the sort of D&T space. And it's really good. Again, your opponent can't ignore it. It's a 3/1 and it's chip shotting for damage. The only thing that I don't like about it is it just becomes another, lava dart fodder.
Yeah.
Again, I don't even care about that. The thing I don't like about it the most is that it's a human. I don't want my human's opponent having 4 copies of Kite Sail Freebooters, 4 Reflector Mages, and then Elite Spellbinders now. And then values Lieutenant to make this thing a 4/2.
Yep, that's a good point.
I'm not excited for that day. When it's just like, Kite Sail your value. Elite Spellbinder, make your, 2 or 3 mana spell now costs 4 and 5 mana. Phantasmal Image, copy Elite Spellbinder in your draw step. Take your actual gas offline. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, talk about, like, preemptive counterspell.
Yeah, the minute I go turn to Stoneforge Mystic, go get a Batterskull, my opponent goes turn 3 Spellbinder, I'm going to be upset. Also, doing the same thing with Hierarch on turn 2, like they can even get the Spellbinder on turn 2, right? So like even if you're on the play, there's a way that your opponent can actually get there, sort of no matter what you do. It's pretty brutal. I mean, again, this card is much better than it looks, and I'm basically never going to have 7 mana to hardcast my Batterskull, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Me and Mr. Elspeth Sun's champion, we've got that part figured out.
Hell yeah. I don't know. Sun's champ is 6 mana though.
Do we feel like we've covered this card pretty well though? I feel like we've done it. Good job, Paulo. Thank you
Thank you, Paulo.
You know, I didn't know I could be so excited for someone else to win Worlds, but here I am. Thank you. Jeez.
Right.
Yeah, if I had known this was the card you were going to design, I would have rooted for you sooner.
Yeah.
Secret D&D player, Paulo.
That's right.
I would have been crunching numbers for free. God knows how. All right, so we got through that faster than I thought we would. That feels good, but I think we do want to make up for some of that time. I think some of this stuff is okay for us to skip over. I don't think this is. I know people are excited about this, but like, I get that this can go on Planeswalkers and stuff, but I don't think there's enough conversation here.
It's cool. I'll probably try it out maybe. See if it's any better against like Hierarchs and stuff, but that's about it for this this 1 mana turn off your guy. Secret Rendezvous though.
Or Secret Rendezvous.
You would turn opponent each draw 3 cards.
2 rows down. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Big
I hope you're excited to draw your 3 cards.
Sorcery speed. Fuck me.
All right.
I think we have to talk about Lumimancer.
Clever Lumimancer. Yeah. Is this gonna make is this gonna push red white prowess be top deck?
Which
I
one's
don't know. Lumimancer is right under Rendezvous, but it's the white card on the left there.
It's the 1 mana human wizard 0/1 with super prowess.
Yeah.
It's basically let's call it what it is. This is double prowess on a creature.
Yeah.
It's a 0/1 with double prowess.
In white.
In white. And so the question is, like, does the blue-white prowess deck become red-white? And, like, what does it look like? This thing does nutty things with Lava Dart, but also, like, you know, Leon and Light Scribe up there is not bad, right? Like, this thing into Leon and Light Scribe into, like, Lava Darts is nasty. So, again, I don't know exactly if it makes it a deck, but it certainly, it certainly looks like it's going to go that way. I'm surprised that this made it through design, but it's sometimes maybe I shouldn't be surprised anymore.
I mean, they put it in white, so that's why I'm not really surprised or concerned. I think it's a lot harder. Like, yes, the body on this creature is insane. The things you have to compromise to get to it are probably way too high.
We'll find out. Could be. I just double prowess was not what I expected to see on a card. I don't know who looked at the prowess mechanic was like, you know what? It should be better.
I want it, but again, yeah, runs a lot of like Kiln Fiend.
Yeah, Kiln Fiend is another. Yep.
But except with Kiln Fiend, you could kill it easily because it only buffs the power of it, not the toughness. This one's like, fuck that shit. I'll cast 1 spell. I'm a 2/3 now.
Yeah, for sure. And it helped that like Thalia had first strike, so like Trample didn't always get through. This is like Lumimancer with like Teamer Battle Rage and Lava Darts and Mutagenic Growth. Like this is Mutagenic Growth. A single Mutagenic Growth makes this thing a 4/5.
Yeah.
Do we need to revisit anything about Professor? I don't think so, right? We can keep going.
Yeah.
I do think we should, at the end, sort of wrap back and talk about the lesson package, but about Professor specifically, I don't
We still have more lessons to talk about. That's
all these colorless ones.
Yeah.
All right, so we're in the. We've made it out of colored spells finally. That didn't take as nearly long as I thought it would have to. Anyway, mascot exhibition. I don't know that we need to concern ourselves with that. Doesn't do a ton.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that the Wandering Archaic, not playable. This is not a Taxos card. Don't put this in your deck. Some people think it is because it.
I actually
involves...
don't hate this card. It's just if it at 5 it's too much. At 4 I would have like been all about it.
Yeah. If it was 5 and you could like Eldrazi Temple it, maybe, but.
Yeah. I laughed at this when I saw this card. I think that's hilarious. A book being a 1/4 body. Fucking like cannot stop laughing at that. The stadium, I think like really interesting, really easy to get to win con. Like that's kind of scary. I'm really concerned about these.
Is it really easy to get to?
I feel like there's so many weird things that untap artifacts.
I mean, you got to connect with a creature to win the game.
Correct. And you have to connect with a creature more than your opponent has. So, like, you already have to be up 10 points of life, basically. Sort of. Not quite. I guess you don't get points for every point of damage you deal. It's just whenever a creature you control, a number of creatures that connect. It's a weird mechanic. I mean, your opponent has to be swinging a lot more than you in order for that to be easy to get.
This just reminds me of like Lantern, where like somebody just puts up a brick wall where you're not getting through anymore, and they're just like, put points on it, put points on it, put points on it, put points on it, and then
you just like proliferate or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only shell I see this working in. Is either some hard control shell that then wins with like a Shark Typhoon, or like some sort of prison deck with like Bridge that then like keeps one card in hand and then hits you with like a Rebel Master for like 1.
Yeah.
Well, that was definitely the intended design of this card, was to wall yourself behind Ensnaring Bridge and then proliferate for the win.
In the standard set, that's what they
That's right. That's exactly. This is Magic as Richard Garfield intended.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to Bridge here in a couple seconds. That got spoiled, right?
Yeah. All right. Next up, some people are excited about Zephyr Boots. This is just Mask of Memory with flying. I don't know. I don't bite it. What do you guys think?
I don't like that it has to connect.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think that it's probably worse than Mask of Memory. I like the flying, but I mean, I don't know. I don't hate it, but I don't think it's any better than any of the equipment we already run or have access to.
Yeah, I feel like if you want this effect, like just play Smuggler's Copter. Like the initial mana sink is actually better on Copter because they're paying 2 mana. This requires at least minimum 3 mana to get going.
I think the allure is that like you can tutor it up.
I guess, but I mean, I'm definitely soft on any equipment that Stoneforge Mystic doesn't reduce in some way, and this actually increases the cost of the equipment overall. If you know.
Yeah. So here goes some of the last parts of lesson, which is like, environmental studies, which is search for a land, gain some life. Then we have a 3 mana scry to draw a card.
Yeah.
5 mana exile a non-land permanent, draw a card. Expand anatomy, pump your team, vigilance kind of thing. I was talking with Ursats, and Ursats said he was doing some kind of testing. I don't know how he was doing it, but like he said that environmental sciences and I think introduction were like still good on rate, where it's like turn 2, you get your professor, you get one of these 2 cards and they're like doing enough, where it's not a horrible thing to have sitting in your sideboard to go grab, like for value. So I'm curious. I don't know how I feel about them yet, but I think that like for me, I think introduction to prophecy is kind of interesting. Like it's kind of like being able to dig for a bugler kind of interaction, so to speak. And then I also just am a huge fan of like guaranteeing that I can find mana. Like I don't hate the idea of like my vial's on 2, I'm on 2 lands, vial and professor, get environmental studies, go get a basic, gain 2 life, put it into play. I don't know. I don't know that they're good enough, but it's just interesting to see how low the floor is for lessons. You guys have any takes on lessons in summation at this point?
I think it's interesting design space, and maybe at some point it's hard to evaluate these cards in a vacuum, because I think that the ultimate conversation that has to take place is like, what part of your sideboard are you willing to sacrifice to have access to these spells? And like, I don't know if we want to have that conversation now, but like, these are decent effects. They're totally reasonable. They're reasonable on rate. There's nothing wrong with them. The problem with them is that they take up board space. So I don't know how much of my board I'm willing to sacrifice before something like this doesn't become better than a specific targeted piece of hate for a matchup that I don't think I'm well positioned in.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm actually in a world where I'd rather just have the quote-unquote removal spells sitting in my board and know that my professor can go grab them.
Yeah.
The reduce the memory, so to speak, or whatever. These don't do. I don't know that these do it for me. I'd have to be in a like spot where like I could see and understand them a little bit better, and that time will come soon enough. But yeah, these ones, I'm hoping that there's still like an uncommon or two one that we haven't seen yet that we eventually will see. Like maybe that's the last couple of cards, because we have them in colors, but we don't have an uncommon in colorless yet. So maybe it's still sitting there. Maybe our backup lesson is still somewhere to be seen.
Yeah, I'm pretty soft on these colorless ones because I mean we already talked about earlier how the like lessons are inherently nerfed because you can tutor them from your sideboard, so they're going to be worse than than the exact same card that like isn't a lesson. And Magic is already further balanced by that by like color requirements. So these colorless ones then need to be even worse than the color lessons. So I mean I think all these colorless ones are just terrible.
There's still a chance that there's some in here, right? That like, let's see,
Maybe
one,
these feel like draft balance. Like one, they're all common and they're all colorless. So that like every deck that plays a lesson or a like learn card, you'll have something to grab out regardless of what color pair that you decide to draft for.
We're missing number 7. Like, there's still a chance that there's uncommon and rare lessons in here still. We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, I'm open to have my mind blown, but right now, like, getting a basic land in your hand, scrying to drawing, like, all of these are just worse than the, like, color equivalent lessons.
The lands, from what we've seen so far, again, I don't know if there's more or not, but, like, seems like we swung and missed on lands, which is fine. Do you guys have any take on the lands? Any of these matter to you guys?
I think that Access Tunnel's interesting if you pair it with something like Geist of Saint Draft. Like, I don't know that we're the right deck for it, but, like, there might be something there. I don't know. But, that is a cheaper version than we've seen before. Before we've seen, like, I can't remember, Hidden Passageway or, Rogue Passage or something. Like, cost 4, now it costs 3. Okay, I mean, they're going to sort of, like, tiptoe their way down, I guess, but eventually that effect is going to be playable. I don't know if it's playable at 3, but, I'm not mad sneaking a Geist of Saint Draft in.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of sad. I want to, even if it wasn't for us, I just wanted to see more exciting, like, spells on lands. These are, like, really restrictive. They don't feel very good. They feel almost like memes. Like, this instant sorcery concept with Magecraft is just, like, way too pushed and makes these lands boring and just kind of like a waste of slots.
Yeah, I mean, all the lands in this set were pretty lame.
Yeah, that was the set.
That's
cool.
it.
So ultimately, before we move into the next topic here, which we are coming close to an end, guys, just so you know, I promise you we're almost done. What's your overall take or feeling on the set?
I like the set. I mean, I think that the set's kind of a flavor win for me. Like, I didn't expect to like this sort of, like, wizardry schoolification of Magic, but I do think that, like, it feels like it is a coherent theme. It's interesting to see them execute on it. I think it's mostly a flavor win, and some of the, like, top end spells are, interesting. Like, I mean, the design, they used a lot of the design space that they had access to, and I think this set as a whole is pretty, it's something that I'm looking forward to playing with. I do think that it's powerful. I think that it's a set that's going to age well. I don't think we know exactly where the homes for all of these cards are going to be. I do think that, like, there may not be a home today, but there'll be a home tomorrow. And so I think that this is going to be a set that ages well. And I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
Offbeat.
Yeah, same. I think the set is super cool. At first, I was pretty soft on the whole like Harry Potter ripoff theme, but now that I've seen it, they definitely carved a bit of their own space here with some of the like school like designs and stuff. But I also like just how some of these cards are exploring some new interesting design space that gives me hopeful for like future sets. Like I know they have like the like shitty meddling mage and the these like side graded disenchant or braid effects and these new command cards, and these are all very interesting. They have very very like fun effects, and I'm starting to think that like maybe after this set or after the next set, the like white cards bad meme will finally be behind us. Because I mean, we're seeing a lot of cool white cards, a lot of cool white X cards that make it seem like, hey, putting white in your deck isn't just like a bad choice anymore.
Yeah, I think I really like this set a lot. I think the one part that I'm really kind of sad about is like I feel like we didn't see them really push the concepts of like school in the direction that I was hoping for. Like, we don't have like a campus location that feels really strong. Like I don't really know that I could tell you what the name of the different pieces are.
Mm.
I feel like lessons and magecraft shoehorned instants and sorceries. And I feel like if I'm in a school around magic, I feel like enchantments should be a big deal. I feel like we missed a mark on seeing enchantments matter. But I think as far as like just like really cool cards and playability, I'm excited for it. But I wish that we would have been able to see this theme locked into better and like that I could confidently understand what the hell Strixhaven even means. But in reality, it's just like the idea of tackling lessons into this didn't really do much, and then Magecraft is just like a backhanded way of saying prowess with different ETBs and so to speak or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just I wish the themes were a little bit more coherent, but I think the set's good. So yeah, pretty excited.
I'm gonna like agree 100% with you on the whole lessons not being like super companion-y, but the fact that they're all colorless and a lesson can apply to basically any subcolor does seem kind of important to me. Like I can appreciate where they went with that. The fact that they didn't just overpower basically guilds seems really important to me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just think that like the identity of lessons just is kind of lost. Like, like what does environmental sciences have to do with like magic? Like that effect doesn't translate to me when I pick it up off of a card that learns. So
it's a super general elective or whatever I call it.
yeah, it feels like it could have been tightened up more. Like it didn't have to be super good. It just should have been like it should have just been relevant. Like if it's supposed to be general and anyone should be able to pick it up, it should be relevant to like the traditional course of a game. So like I'll give like a loose example. Um, let's have a lesson be on 2 mana, literally just something like scry 1. I don't know, scry 1, draw a card. I don't know. That might be really good. I don't know, but like it just feels like these could have been a little bit more streamlined and made a little more sense. And just like it should have been an exciting card to go get. I just think lesson could have been developed more. It feels like they just had to be really low powered with like kind of like an aimless energy, and it feels like they locked it in on sorceries instead of like enchantment. Like you probably should have been able to get a sorcery or an enchantment. And again, you can make the enchantments a little bit more expensive, but like an enchantment is something that a person studying magic would learn, and that just isn't something we picked up on here.
That's a pretty good point, and it's also worth noting that like, in a kind of maybe not super ironic way, they like took the lessons and made them boring, right? Like they just in the same sense that a conventional lesson might be conceived as being boring. Like they actually took the lessons and made them unexciting spells. They're not aggressively costed. They don't do like flashy things, and of course they probably have to do that because you're tutoring them up from the board. But like that does feel like a bit of a flavor fail
In a game that's supposed to be exciting, like I don't think they're supposed to lock into academia and the minute ways of classes not being exciting. All right, so that's the set. We do have our last piece that we have to do. It's important that we do this every expansion. It's not necessarily something that you think you should be thinking about, but you should be thinking about it. I think I closed this window by accident. Let's see. Um, Let's see if I can pull it back up.
The modern ban list, everyone's favorite topic.
So I think Carrot and I have a really, really deep relationship with locking in on the modern ban list and being pretty spot on with like kind of like the concerns and like things that should be talked about. So our modern ban list has been updated. We had a lot of cards get banned recently that deserved to be banned, and we saw some collateral damage along the way as well. So for things that are just like, haha, like don't even waste our time, you can just say false and keep moving. So let's just run through the list. Ancient Den, and then suitably any other artifact lands outside of that. Karens?
I mean, I don't actually mind these things. They're good with like cranial plating and stuff. I don't know that they're doing anything that like is really truly oppressive anymore. I don't think they add any value, which is really the reason I think they shouldn't bother to come off. But like, I don't think they're too powerful to stay on.
Yeah, I think these cards just are dead on arrival. I don't think that they're we don't have like Enlightened Tutor, but we do have things like Fabricate. So I think these things are too dangerous, and I think that they deserve to stay here and die.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, even with KCI being banned, I feel like they're borderline in terms of like an Emery deck. Being able to pull out a turn 1 Emery into like a turn 2 like Arayo or some stupid ridiculous combo or something like that.
Yeah, these things are not healthy. They don't do anything that's like you're never going to be in a game where this is used as a reasonable like mana source.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's either broken or bullshit. It's one or the other.
Yeah, definitely falls in this pool of cards I like to describe as either they're doing nothing or they're broken. There's no balanced, fair way that they're being played.
Arkham's Astrolabe, we don't need to waste our time.
Yeah.
Birthing Pod, I mean, anybody want to talk about this? Should we even talk about this?
Keep that shit on there.
I think that like when we get to the ban list discussion, there's always two discussions that get had, which is on the one side is it too powerful? And on the other side, is it good for the health of the format? And those are two different questions. Some things aren't necessarily too powerful, but aren't good for the format. And like, I don't actually know, like, Birthing Pod was a challenging deck to play against. Like, just because of the way the decks were constructed, they were very linear. I don't think, like, Birthing Pod has the Stoneforge Mystic problem, except it's much worse because obviously they print a bunch of aggressively costed creatures. I really don't think that this should, like, I don't think this should exist in Modern. I think it should stay on the ban list, but like, I think it's perpetually one of these things where it's like, you know, Splinter Twin. Everybody's like, how about now? And then all of us go, no. And then, you know, I don't think it's doing anything good for the format, but I don't know whether it's too powerful or not.
I think it's too powerful. I think the creatures you want to sacrifice are easy to make them be in color of your deck, and the ability to chain them up into cards that like you wouldn't cast in the color of mana you're supporting. I think I just don't want to see that shit in Modern. That's something I don't want to see.
Sure.
Blazing Troll we can skip, Bridge we can skip, Chrome Mox we can skip, Cloud Post we can skip, Dark Depths I think we can skip Dark Depths. Deathrite Shaman, Dig Through Time, Dread Return, Eye of Ugin, Faithless Looting, Field of the Dead, Rest in Peace, piece of shit, Jataxian Crow, Glimpse, Golgari, Great Furnace, Green Sun Zenith.
I mean, per usual, I'm in the camp that Green Sun Zenith can probably come off. Again, the justification way back when for it being banned was like, it's too versatile. Turn 1 it goes and grabs Dryad Arbor, and turn 1,000,000 you get something really big and beefy. I don't know that the card is actually doing anything overpowered in Modern. I don't know that it's doing anything significantly different than like Finale of Devastation or Collected Company or Lad Marie's Call or something like, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it seems like we have so many substitutes for this card that like it's probably good to come off, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Green Sun needs to come off. I think that my biggest concern at one point was Primeval Titan when it was Field of the Dead in the format, but like now that Primeval Titan is just a Primeval Titan again, I think Green Sun's probably fine.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the initial reason that Green Sun Zenith was banned because it was like homogenizing green decks? Like if you were in green, you were running, like you were like definitely running it, right?
It would still do the same thing. It's kind of like Aether Vial for any deck that runs Noble or like Birds or whatever. And I don't know that that's a problem, but I just think that like it was just an easy space for Wizards to just say like this isn't good for the identity of a format we've been protecting for so long. I mean, not that they protected it that long, but at that point when they made that decision, they were protecting it. But I think Green Sun's probably a card that eventually needs to come off. Hogak, Hypergenesis, KCI, Mental Misstep, Mox Opals, Lattice, Sanctuary, Oko, Once Upon It feels so good. Ponder, Preordain, Punishing Fires when I come back to. Now that the format feels normal again, I'm actually going to retract a statement and say a Punishing Fire probably should just stay where it is.
Hell yeah.
I think this is a level of feel bad that doesn't need to exist in Modern.
I think especially now that Prowess is a deck, I think Prowess just like literally goes green, runs Grove of the Burn Willows and Punishing Fire and goes to town.
Yeah.
It makes Groves good against Death Shadow, which just starts to unbalance the format again, so I don't want that.
Yeah.
Rights, Seats, Second Sunrise, Heating Song, Divining Top, Guide, Skull Clamp, Splinter Twin. Is Splinter Twin allowed back in? I mean, I feel like that was a debate for so long. Do we really want Splinter Twin in the discussion anymore?
I don't think so. I mean, because like people, Unbanned Twin, big meme. People love Splinter Twin. Like it's fine. We have so many good answers now. We have Force Negation. We have all these other stuff. That's all these new power level cards that seem to be able to handle Twin. But when people say it to me, all I hear is like Twin's just gonna also run those cards. Like Twin's gonna run. They're gonna go Jeskai. They're gonna run Teferi. They're gonna run Force Negation. And it's gonna be even more impossible to stop this combo from going off. And I think it's just gonna be a miserable time.
I mean, that's more or less how I feel about it too. I mean, again, I think that it falls in the same camp as Birthing Pod, where like on raid it may not be the most powerful thing in the format that you can do. I mean, again, your opponent can just go into your hand and Thoughtseize whatever they want. But like for the most part, I just think that it creates these like bad play patterns that are hard to escape, and like certain decks just can't interact and automatically lose. And again, I just don't think it's the kind of thing that you want to have access to in Modern. But of course, Kiki Twin's a deck and like doesn't do anything, and your Night Gibb was a Kiki Exarch is the deck and it doesn't do anything, and so I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily too powerful. I just don't think it's good to have in Modern.
I hate the feeling of losing to it. It also like it's weird because Helioid reminds me of it, where it's just like this interaction isn't skilled. It doesn't feel good. You haven't done anything talented. You haven't had to really think your way through anything. It's just kind of like these two cards have this broken interaction with them. And I really wish Wizards would just focus on making sure that like 2-card interactions are like not allowed to exist in their game. I don't know why that's not a rule or policy, but like 2 cards shouldn't equal like mundane board states or lockouts or immediately win on the spot when they like. But going from 3 and 4 mana, meaning that you win the game, is just, to me, it's just a dumb place for a game to be in.
I have to agree with you. I think that it mostly comes down to the decks that are just like, oops, I win. And particularly in the case of Heliod, like your opponent just, your opponent can go off on turn 3 with no interaction. And like, sometimes there's very little that you can do about it. Like, depending on what your deck is doing and all this stuff, like, gaining a million life on turn 3 is just, it punishes fair decks. And again, I don't know the Oops I Win decks really have to stay gone. And you're right that there's a kind of similarity between the way Twin used to win straight off the top. They'll just draw into their thing that they need, or Heliod does the same thing, except it's even worse because they spin the wheel, right? They like Coco. They like accelerate their way into Coco, spin the wheel, and just if they hit Heliod and Spike Feeder at the exact same time, you just lose. So again, I'm with you.
So I think I mostly agree with Charons Obol there, except for Twin, I reserve a special hatred for it. I think because they get to play a 1 CMC tax effect without ever necessarily even having the tax in their deck, right? Like, we have to have a Thalia in play before we as Taxes players get the tax effect. But a Twin deck having 3 CMC up on turn 3, they can present a win, which means that the opponent has to keep up 1, possibly 2 mana to counter that effect.
Which may not even work anymore now either, right? With Force of Negation, like, keeping up the mana doesn't mean that, like...
Yeah, so they're even better off than they were before with the free tax effect.
Yeah.
Which is basically what I'm saying, is the fact that they had a free tax effect, which is what allowed them to be essentially a modern Delver deck, you kind of call it, a red-white Delver deck, playing quote-unquote fair while not playing fair because they had that ridiculous win out of nowhere. That's essentially the unfairness they had in we have 1 card that makes us win out of nowhere kind of a thing.
Yeah. Fuck Splinter Twin. I never want to see that card ever again.
I just want to mention that they also have additional consistency tools now that they didn't used to have. I mean, just look at they're about to get Prismari Command, which is an instant speed Faithless Looting.
Yeah.
Right? Like they have consistency tools that they did not have access to before, and so if you were to build that deck from the ground up today, it would be more consistent than it was when Twin was banned.
I think there would be Blue Moon that would just have Splinter Twin in it. You'd be
they could honestly be 5 or even 6 mana probably for the Splinter Twin effect. If that was on a new card at 5 or 6 mana, they could probably still play it and be just as playable as they ever were.
Yeah. So Splinter Twin, fuck off. Summer Blue, Trickery, Cruise, Free, Jet. Dare I?
Impossible.
Can I say something? Like, honestly, I don't even know if I would play Umezawa's Jet anymore.
Oh, you would play it.
I mean,
I would definitely try it.
It seems pretty good against prowess decks, right?
You think it's good against prowess?
I mean, you get 1 trigger off, and I mean, gain life, killing the guys.
When are you getting a trigger off? The games I'm losing to prowess is because I can't even get a fucking sword to the board on a body. So I don't know that my Jit is like... I think Jit is like mirror fodder, and like I don't know the decks in Modern that still give a shit about a Jit anymore. Jit feels like a really strange card in the world of Modern.
Jit is a hammer pull, right?
It does make hammer pretty good.
Maybe
that's probably all it is. It's going to be the second or third pull on a hammer deck.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely think Jit could get unbanned. And I used to be hyped for it because, like, at this point, I just want to homogenize our deck between Legacy and just, like, basically be looking at the Legacy crowd, like, why do you still exist? Do you even go here? But, like, at this point, like, I'm not even sure, like, I want this thing more than Maul. Like, I don't know that I want to give up Maul to put Jit in my deck anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Jit does look pretty dumb in the face of, like, fucking Shadow or, like, Scourge of the Skyclaves or, like, Heliod Company. I mean, yeah, it's pretty good in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. We have a way to beat ourselves up all day, which isn't even necessarily true because we run Skyclave Apparition.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know about Jit anymore. And it's legendary. So it's not like you can like jam a bunch of them in your deck and get super value out of them.
I think that Offbeat has a really good point. I mean, the idea is like time has passed, and the things that they're printing these days are really powerful. I think that especially compared to something like Scourge of the Skyclaves or something like that, it just sort of laughs at GT a little bit. I mean, yeah, I mean, is it good against Scourge? Sure, you connect with a creature, or you try and you gain 4 life, and it shrinks the Scourge. But if the Scourge that I'm staring down is going to be, a 10-10 or 12-12 anyway, I mean, it just seems silly that I'm expected to stare that down, and my opponent can't handle me gaining 4 life off a trigger. I don't know. It's in light of some of the things that have been printed recently, it seems weird that that GT is still on the outside looking in.
It's again at this point, like take it or leave it. I don't really care anymore. Like there was a point in time where I'm like, there's that window of opportunity where like things kind of are like, well, it doesn't matter anymore. You've printed something dumber than this. And at this point, I think JIT's kind of like at that realm of like, we've done dumber things than JIT. So, I don't know. I think for me, JIT's time has passed. I'd much rather have a Maul of the Skyclave. Maul of the Skyclave actually might make you beat the creature that they put JIT on.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, you know what I want is Uro's GT. When enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and you draw a card, and then every time you connect, you gain 3 life and draw a card. That's what I wanted.
There you go.
You get +6/+6.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, I mean, how silly are we going to get here? I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, nothing could be sillier than the thing they actually designed.
Yeah.
Right. My opponent can at least
Totally
interact
okay.
with the equipment. Can stop me from using it, sort of, kind of. I don't know. It definitely gets value off of it when it enters the battlefield, though.
You know how you get me to like never bring up Umezawa's JIT again? You take cards like Halvar and you put the equipment on the front side. Like, you didn't mess up with Halvar. You made sure he was a 4-mana card on the front, and then put the equipment on the back side. Let me start seeing some modal cards where it's like the front side's 2-mana equipment, legendary, and then put like some Smack Daddy on the back side. Like then I'll never
let's tutor it up with Stoneforge Mystic and then play the creature side.
Yeah. I'll never ask for JIT again if I see that. But
I'm playing Uro's GT.
dude, I'm playing any 2-mana. What it really boils down to is I just really I want my equipment to curve. Like I feel like it's weird that like I can have a grip where there's sword and Maul in there, and I have to like choose a sequence between them. Like, give me a world where I can like play them on curve and it's fine, and I'm happy. But we don't really have the 2-mana equipment that's really like, yeah, this is great.
Well, I think it's the same thing with the equipment as it is the creatures, right? Which is, we're winning with creature. We stand a fighting chance with our creatures at 3 mana, but everything's better at 2. Thalia, Arbiter, you name it. We don't even necessarily like playing Arbiter, but again, anything that sticks the board at 2 mana and does a reasonable job taxing, that's really where we want to be. And it's the same with the equipment. We want to get there on 2 mana, and getting there on 3 isn't bad, but it's not great.
Yeah. So, all right. So I think the biggest piece we've taken from this, as always, is Green Sun can come off. We're still shoulder shrugging at like why Umezawa's JIT's on here, and everything else is supposed to be banned.
Yeah.
That's it. That wraps it up. I appreciate both of you guys staying and doing this with me. Phoenix, thanks for coming in and sharing some commentary. And then for anyone who's watching this on video, that's your fault, man.
On the YouTube.
Said I wanted to do an hour, so you can kick rocks.
This is pretty standard. The 2.5 hour set review. I think that's normal.
Jesus, this is deep. I mean, we've gone deep, but I mean, there was a lot going on here. So, all right, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna end the recording here, and we'll catch you guys for the next set review. I guess Modern Horizons 2 is coming up around the corner.
Yeah.
Good luck and happy taxing.
Hell yeah.